half asleep.
Hey, Dean, can you put the questions up front and the chat box for us, please?
Ooh, wow. I'm impressed.
Can you see that?
He not only did it, he did it fast.
I can't see it, though.
Yeah, can't see it either, but it's done fast. Hi, Michael. Hi, Jake, Vinny, Brian. Tell them to put down the root beer already. Who's got the root beer? Nobody's got root beer.
No, normally I do it. Today it's 0 sugar Snapple half and half. True breakfast of champions. Hey, and you know what? I met a couple people, just so you guys all know, I met a couple people out in Raleigh a couple weeks ago. A couple of you guys came out, and it was a pleasure seeing you. We got to chat with a couple people from Raleigh. I got to chat with a couple people from Raleigh. They helped me out in my booth, so I really appreciate that.
Oh, good. How was the participation at that?
It was pretty decent. Raleigh's a great area. I will tell you this as a personal aside, though. My hotel was right out on a street. It was one of the main streets right by the convention center.
Mm-hmm.
And on Saturday night, they were having, I think it was a Mexican American night where they had trucks all up and down it playing music till like 1 in the morning. Sorry, Dean, we're getting reverb. So, all right, we lost the questions again.
Oh, we kind of got them. We can see them over there.
As long as Dean sees them.
Yeah, as long as you see them, Dean, we're fine. Anybody have any questions, comments? Have you been getting any suggestions for...
No.
So we're always looking for suggestions.
No.
We're always looking for suggestions for the next couple months worth of demos. So if you guys have ideas, please mail them to sales@exoticblanks.com.
One of the things you may have noticed is that we're doing things outside of pen turning for the last couple of months. Kind of an opportunity for people to ask for anything that they would like to see done. Realizing that we all have, well, most of us have a lathe, and most of us have turned pens for a period of time. So if there's something pen turning related you'd like to do, that's great. If there's something totally non-pen turning related, but it can be done on a MIDI lathe, let us know. Among the three of us, typically one of us has done it at least once. And most of the time it's one of the two guys that are good at this, and I've done it many, many years ago. So,
well, no, you know what else it provides?
Mm-hmm.
It provides me a reason to go buy some new stuff and try something
that's
new.
important too. Yes.
So as long as I get to buy new tools and buy new techniques,
Yep.
Oh my God, I'm always up for it.
Yep. And it's tax deductible because we're doing this as an educational forum. So my uncle can sit back and watch.
Hey, so Mike, I see that I saw your comment about Raleigh. Sorry to hear that. I hope everything is going well right now. So I hope everything is better. So if you missed me out in Raleigh and you guys really want, you can come see us, all three of us, at the Midwest Pen Turners Gathering in April. And then the AAW next year has already announced that it's going to be in Oklahoma City the year after. Good. It's good to see that things are fine. Thanks for letting us know.
So bottle stoppers, do they come with bushings? No, and we'll talk about how we make these without bushings. Basically, it's the mandrel that we use. It'll act as your bushing.
Yes.
Recognize that many of the things that you do outside of pens, handles, bottle stoppers, all those things, are not a critical fit. You know, when you're dealing with a pen, you need to be within a couple of thousand so the pen looks wonky. When you're dealing with a handle, you're moving into something that's got a mating point that is somewhere between 3/4 of an inch and an inch, generally speaking. You don't have to butt up to that dead on. Mm-hmm. So, you know, when you look at this stuff and say, well, can I get bushings? You know, I've told people for many years you could make bushings. This is one of those cases where you really don't have to be very good at it, and you can make bushings.
You know, a lot of it
if they're
comes-
within the right ballpark, you're going to come out with a good answer. Go ahead.
And we're going to talk about this. I know John's going to talk about it too. Your design can
Yeah.
hide that.
That's
So
it.
if you do swoops and tapers and stuff like that,
Yeah.
your design hides the whole thing.
I've never done a swoop.
Well,
Well, there you go. I've done swoops and tapers.
The tapers and swoops.
there it is, right?
Wow, look at this.
So
So let me get the time on this before they mocked me real quick. It is 12 minutes into the conversation and we're already mocked.
Well, we're good. We got 7 more minutes to mock, Mark. We're
Well,
good.
the nice thing about handles and bottle stoppers, I use the same mandrel for all of it.
Yeah, I do.
You know, it's all the same setup. So once you're set up to do a handle or bottle stopper, you know, anything that takes these threaded inserts, it all works the same.
And if you don't mind, John, when you talk about the mandrels, I might interrupt a split second
Stop it.
No.
and talk about. So I love these mandrels for handles too. But a lot of times, what I'll do is I'll give a little support on the back end.
Absolutely, which is why I've got that.
That's it. Okay.
Yep.
Or I'll use those rubber
Yeah, the
plunger
rubber
stoppers.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, the test
If
tube
you're going to talk about it, that's fine.
Yep, no, it's a lot of fun, especially when you start playing around with some of these chucks because, I mean, let's face it, there's no wrong way of making them.
Hey, look,
So,
Parmesan. So that's always a good one. Always good to see that one. Mike is there. It's like romper room, romper stomper, romper roo.
yeah, the hardest part about bottle stoppers, it's just hard to display them.
It is.
You know, unless you build it like we were talking earlier, building a rack. Depending on what style you make, it's a little difficult to display them. So that's why I like, you know, some of these flatter ones. They'll stand up, but for the most part,
I'd hold off because you don't want to steal your demo before the show starts.
yeah.
So we
See, I thought you were going to say the hardest part about bottle stoppers is not finishing the bottle so you have a use for it.
Right. Well, and we'll talk about that too. It may determine which type of bottle stopper you make, depending on if you finish the bottle or not. So there's a lot of thought that can go into that.
When we did them years ago, we took a wine
So who's-
bottle and then took a disc and put it on top of it and made a bunch of holes around the outside of it, and then put the neck of the wine
Yep.
bottle through it. The reason we did it that way was because at that time nobody had a clue what these things were,
Sure.
and so if you had a wine bottle there, it gave them an idea of what the purpose of it was. Now, I will tell you also, I was not a successful bottle stopper vendor. On the other side of the coin, at the same shows, often, Dick Singh was there, and he was a successful bottle stopper vendor, which may explain why I wasn't. So yeah, it is interesting to see how people can make them so much more attractive and such a nice product. And I was not good at it. And
Well, and we were blessed with the fact that Dick set some of his work up here tonight, so we'll be able to show off some of his work and how he added embellishments or just little things to make them different. So yeah, there's so many things you can do, and every time I look at some of Dick's work, I think, wow, how did he do that? So tonight we'll talk about all that and hopefully inspire.
So when you said it takes a little bit of work to actually get these done well, are you suggesting Ed and I should stay for the demos to help you with that part, or?
If you want to leave the room, Ed can stay, but you're
that is probably not going to be very visible because I have a cough that decides when it wants to come, and when it comes, I am very disruptive. So I'll do my best to stay outside of here and not be disruptive to the group. But it's not because I don't want to watch you. It's just because I don't want to disturb the whole world when it decides it's time.
So anybody have any questions, comments, anything you want us to or talk about beforehand? Any suggestions for the next coming months? What kind of demos you're looking for? Please let us know. We've got a few minutes before we're going to get starting.
3 minutes you got. All the time in the world.
better figure out what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, it should be.
Well, I would think if I'm on the other end, I would make a suggestion only because typically that's the stuff that we give away in our giveaways. And if there's something cool that you want to see Dawn give away and Dean give away, make a suggestion that we're going to be doing potato mashers. We're going to be doing something else.
Pammy, feel free to give us ideas as we go along. It's,
Yeah, we're always looking.
Yep.
If you've made a lot of them, certainly it's great to chip in with oh, by the way, try this from time to time. None of us have done everything.
Well, like we were talking a little bit ago, the biggest problem or challenge with bottle stoppers is knowing what bottle you're going to put them in, so you know what size stopper to use or purchase, and that's the problem, because you wind up having maybe a few different sizes just so that you can pick the right one, and thankfully they all thread the same, so you can just swap the bases out real quick. But it is,
Well, that's going to be a big point that you're going to talk about. I mean, as few as 4 or 5 years ago, there were these B-certs and stuff were not popular, and people were actually threading the bottle stopper. And holy cow, did that make a huge difference in
Or-
making bottle
or
stoppers?
cork, you know.
Yeah, or the cork ones.
Cork's been a big deal, and we've now got the silicone that goes on the bottom, as well as the stainless steel with the rubber O-rings. But there's a lot of options.
So Pimey says he's into classic muscle cars, bow hunting, and kayaking. If you're looking for good giveaways, well, I'll tell you, Pimey, I have a nice '57 Chevy Bel Air in my garage. If you ever want to, if you're ever in the Chicagoland area, stop out. We can go out and have some fun with it.
I
Tool
don't think we'll be
handles?
giving away kayaks, though, but that was a good try.
Maybe a session on tool handles.
I don't know. I think I'll just go out to Piney's place. We'll go bow hunting.
Yeah. We'll take the '57 out to his
There you
place.
go. Yeah.
We'll drive around there, and then you can go bow hunting
There
with
you
him.
go. Sounds good to me.
We got a deal. I don't know where. The only problem is we don't know where he lives, but
Well, that's the small
road trips are road trips.
We,
Yeah.
we do have addresses, so
You type it in your phone and you just go where it tells you.
that's right. That's right.
Northwest PA. I was just up in Raleigh, North Carolina. That's pretty close, relatively speaking.
Well, we're at 6 o'clock, so let's get started so that we can get a good evening in. Once again, as always, I want to thank everybody for attending. And as always, I want to thank Dean, who is our Alpha Geek. The other thing that we should mention these days is that Dean has also become our chat geek. For those of you who have had questions, and we readily admit that we are not answering the phone, honestly, because there's so many calls on it that are subscription calls and other calls that waste our time. And Dawn and I get kept fairly busy trying to ship everything. So it is a genuine waste of time to answer the phone. Now, I do call back people who leave messages, and I want to say, interestingly, when we get a full day of calls, there will typically be 10 to 12 calls that come in during the day. And we will get 1, possibly 2 voice messages. So it wasn't important enough to leave a message. In my mind, that means it wasn't important enough for me to break from all the people that wanted stuff out of here so that I could listen to somebody that didn't have the time to leave a message. So if you leave a message, we will return your call. But at the same time, if you want something right away, most of the time Dean is on the chat. He's able to do that during the day most of the time, but recognize that he also has a real job that he does from home too. So if you don't get an answer right away, it means that he's being a high-class executive for a while. All of us have to deal with high-class executive once in a while.
I can give him Dean's cell phone number right
Yeah.
now.
That'd work out.
If anybody wants, cell phone number and
If you're bored, you're just lonely, maybe the cat's taking a nap, you just need someone to talk to, just chat out to Dean.
That'll work out. Yeah.
That goes both ways, Mark. That goes both ways.
I don't know
Trust
that you
me.
have. I'm not sure you have my real number.
I can help with that.
Excuse me. Thank you all for being here. And as usual, John and Mark have made the trip, and we are appreciative of their time. And with that, I'm going to let them get started before I decide that I need to cough for an hour and a half. So go ahead. Who's starting?
Hey, before we start, Dawn, did you want us to explain what the giveaways are going to be and what the specials are right now? Or should we wait?
Dean can do that.
Dean, whenever you want to talk about the giveaway and the specials just to keep people's interest, feel free.
Yep, I will say this one's going to be different than any one we've done before. There will be a definite special, but the giveaway, there's going to be 12 of them.
Interesting. 12 giveaways.
Wow.
Oh, Don gives a nod of, oh, yeah, I know where he's going with that. That's always a good thing.
You know what that
if she
means?
gives you a questioning look, we're in trouble.
I thought it was a one-night stay at Exotic Blanks overnight. So
You know what
that'll be
that
fun.
means? That means 12 more boxes to pack up.
12. Okay, take
All
it,
right.
guys.
Well, bottle stoppers. I guess the first thing to know about bottle stoppers is you got a lot of options. And the type of bottle stopper you're going to make is going to come down to, I guess, your interests, your material at hand, how much time you have, or overall what your project you want it to look like. So I don't know. What do you think?
Is it fair to say bottle stoppers, much like pens, have really evolved over, especially over the last couple of years? I mean,
Sure.
they, as recent as 5-7 years ago, they were still predominantly wood.
Mm-hmm.
And now all the work that people like yourself do with casting and being creative is now taking it to just a completely new level. And it's going to be fun to look at some of the stuff that you've done and some of the cool different areas that you can take this in.
Well,
That's true on both ends, too. When we did pen shows, this was a bottle stopper.
Mhm.
And if you didn't like this one, you didn't like bottle stoppers because that was all there was.
Yeah.
So over the last couple of years, they have really come in with a lot of different styles and a lot of things that weren't available. So yes, there's a real difference in it. Go ahead, and I'm going to bow out. I will
Okay.
see you all later.
Sounds good, sir. Well, I'll start. I guess we'll have Dean. We'll have you go to the close-up camera here, and first off, we can kind of give you an idea of some of the options out there. And for starters, basically, what you put on the bottom of your stopper is your first decision making, right? And there's so many different things out there. There's the points. There's the freestanding ones. There's the silicones. Does it really make a difference? I guess some might be easier to clean than others. If you're using the inserts, and there's a couple different kinds here. There's brass. There's the chromed metal. There's a few different brands out there. So I will tell you that these, we actually use the 12.5 millimeter, which is the same drill that you use on your junior uppers. And
Which is it okay to interrupt?
Yeah.
So the thing about it is, they're called 1/2 inch,
right,
and if you drill it with a 1/2 inch drill bit, you're going to have too much slop in there.
Yep.
There's going to be some play in there.
it drops in and out. Absolutely.
If you drill it with the 12.5, which you showed me,
Mhm.
the nice thing about it is I'll put a little bit of glue. I assume it's okay to jump into it. I'll put a little bit of glue into it, and then I'll just use my drill press
Yep.
to slowly push it in, and they seat in there so perfectly.
I tap them with a ball peen hammer. They drop right in.
Okay.
So the nice thing about it, I will say, this is the first, and I find this quite ugly, but this was the first bottle stopper I made, and it actually threads onto the mandrel the same as it threads onto the, let me come over here. The same as it threads onto the stopper itself. And if you noticed, there's no insert in this one. This was just a piece of lilac that I had, and this has a cutter on it. As long as you keep backing it out, drill your hole slightly undersized, and then start your threads. Go in maybe 1/8 of an inch, back it out, clear the hole, and then basically work it all the way into the blade until it seats flat against your mandrel. And I like that mandrel for that case. It actually cuts the threads. I don't have to use an insert. So if I'm just playing around with something and I don't want to waste an insert, I'll do that. I'll drill a hole and then just tap the threads in it. And that way I can still thread it on the base. I can swap these out to any one that I want. So if I don't like the point, or maybe I've decided I want to make one that fits a whiskey bottle, which has to be a little bit bigger than this, I can just thread this off and thread the other one on. So they're all interchangeable. That's what's really nice about them. So when I started out, I made this ugly lilac one first, and I was just playing around with some beading tools and just to kind of see what I could do to expose what was in that little piece of wood. And at the time I was casting, so I thought I'd have a little bit of fun, and I was casting embedded acorn caps and some green, and this is all just scrap resin that I'd have. I'd pour something, I'd pour some blanks or have something left over, so I'd throw it in a small cup and throw it in the pressure pot and let them cure, and that way I had these small blanks like this, something to play around with. And what's nice about small things like that is even in a pinch, if you don't have a mold, you can use bottles that you already have, and I'll just turn this off when I cast or turn the blank. But if we move forward, I'll talk more about how we would prepare these.
And just to give everybody a heads up, you are going to be talking about casting later. Today,
Yep,
right?
yep. We'll
We
actually
are going
cast
to cast a
one.
couple of these.
Sure.
And the other is it once again, I'll stop saying it. The other nice thing is if you're doing bigger casting, like some of the stuff that we've talked about in previous demos, like pepper mills and stuff like that, this is always a spectacular thing to have on the side.
Sure.
So if you over pour the colors that you have,
You're not
and you've
wasting
got-
your resin.
yeah, you're not going to waste the resin. You can either have a pen blank mold or one of these molds, and you can really get a lot of beautiful colors
Yep.
that you would have on it.
So the nice thing is, like I said, the wood ones are fun. This was the busy block, and it's just all random pieces glued together. There's no, if you notice, there's no set shape to any of these, right? They're all a little different, a little unique. And I know a lot of guys, when they make them, they'll kind of plan out how they want something to be. Oftentimes, I find myself just throwing it on the lathe and turning it. And as I turn it, I just think, I'm going to put a bead here. I'm going to put a cove there. I'm going to cut an overhang, whatever. Maybe I want to just a concave top, maybe something that tapers down a little bit. That's the
Well,
fun
like the concave cap right next to the cherry pit one, it's just two dramatically different forms.
And
right there.
that's the fun thing about stoppers is you're not wasting a lot of material when you do it. And if you screw it up, you're really not out much.
Mhm.
You know, and a lot of my resin ones, like this one here, was just scrap resin. I was doing some color casts, and I had these 3 or 4 colors, and I just dumped them all in one little cup, and was able to. I was envisioning a Christmas light when I turned that one, so that's my Christmas light bottle stopper, even though it's upside down. But you can have fun with things. So when I got into resin casting, I was looking to pour resin over everything, and this is a piece of deer antler, and I cast it with some bronze mica, and it allowed me to. I cast the antler sideways, so it allowed me to cut into the marrow of that antler, and you can see all the
That's
insides,
spectacular.
and just give a little bit of character. And this is an older one, the bottles, the cherry pits. But that's just kind of some of the stuff I've played around with, and the dandelions. Those are a lot of fun. I've got one down there I can show later, but it's it's just whatever you can think of to have fun with and cast in your stuff. This was let's put it this way: they're not all pretty, right? I mean, what do you do? Sometimes they look better in your mind, and then when you're finished, you're like, well, I wanted to make something that looked like an acorn, and I had a small scrap of zebra wood, so I turned it down, and the whole time I was envisioning acorn. I textured the top a little bit, but the problem is it tore out on me in a few places, and I just kind of had to take a Dremel and carve the little stem on it. But I look at that, and it almost needs a face on it. It's so ridiculous. So that was just something to play around with. But you can have so much fun with this kind of stuff. And then I talked to Dick Singh, and Dick shows me some of the things he's made. I want to share this with you because I find it very inspiring. Not only,
Bottle stoppers are tremendous skill builders.
yeah, and so for me, just to try to turn something kind of a round shape and give a little bit of a texture, and maybe a little bit of beading is one thing, and then I feel good about it, and then I go over and I see Dick's work, and I don't even want to pull mine out of the box. But what I really appreciate on this kind of stuff is it can start out as something just basic shape. Well, we'll leave this one to last. Start out with something with just very subtle shapes, but everything is so finely detailed in the material types that he's using and the inlay. And there's several. There's one, two. There's three different inlays on top. And we look at this one again. You know, the multiple layers that go through this, and the types of wood and the contrasts really just jump out at you. And if you choose things, and this is that, was it Taganut or whatever they call that?
I'll tell you what. Yeah.
Tagua nut. And this is the black palm on the top for the texture and character. And just very unique stuff. But, of course, in true Dick fashion, not only will he then come out with something very elegant in the wood shape, but then he feels the need to add captive rings to it. So, you know, you wind up getting something with a captive ring spun in there, all out of the same piece. And this one has the ring as well. This one now has the texturing. So if you've ever used those chatter tools, you can get some texturing on the side. But not only is it on the top, but it's also down here around the rim, which is very...
Can you isolate on that one and the number 2, just the way that the form goes down and that little extra lip that he puts in there
Yep.
to make it look like it's sitting on something, as opposed to, like, if I were to do it, I would probably just put it down and loop it.
Right.
That little extra lip that he's got
Well,
in there on that
to
really
look
make
at-
it stand out.
If you think about it, like for me, this is kind of my basic shape, right? I slightly oversize off the base of the threads, and then I come up. But these actually sit on top of the bottle and give it more of a lip, more of a crown, so to speak. And this one as well. Now, and Dick was using a lot of corks, so these are 3/8 rods that are drilled in, and then the corks are on the rods, and that's basically what this is. Now, if you're not into the metal works, you can also get these, and it's basically a 1/2 inch diameter at the bottom, and these silicone sleeves, and they're available here at Exotic Blinks. They slip over the top of these, and then this 3/8 inch hole goes into the wooden stopper, and then the silicone cleans off very easily. They fit in the bottle nicely, and you can always pop them off and wipe them down. But here's something that I really get a kick out of. Again, you know, 3 captive rings on this one. He must have been bored because he only put 3. Just kidding, Dick. But I know in true Dick fashion that would have been a challenge. He would have probably put 10 times that many on there just to show you that he could. But what I really like about this one here is not only is the grain and the shape of this thing beautiful, but I got a kick out of it because he decided that this is for the morning after. After you drink the wine, you may need some aspirin or Tylenol. So that fits inside the lid of this bottle stopper. So I find that very, very unique. And of course, you know, that's all turned, and the cap fits on there very elegantly and lines up with the grain. So
Yeah, the cap is completely hidden. When you...
I missed it the first time, and he said, "Oh, you missed the best part," and it's so unique, just beautiful work. So where are we at here? Do
Do you want to mention this one too? This is a different bottom.
Yeah, we've got a couple different options. So for the bottoms, if you notice, these are also for bottle openers. And of course, if we had a bottle, but basically you just use this handle as the prop, and then you wedge this over your cap and then pop your bottles off. Another option is this, and these are for the pop tabs to get underneath the lip and pop them up. So those are other options that we have, and they all work on the same threaded inserts, which is great because once you make something, you can...
Ooh. No charge for the dust.
Oh, jeez. So basically, it just comes in here like... It would come in here. The bottle's too tall. I can't get it in the shot without covering it up, but there we go. Basically, it just fits over it like this, and then I don't want to open it because then I'm going to be forced to drink this. But basically, you just wedge it on here like this and pop it off. So they work the same.
Thank you. Ed.
Remove that.
And the other option is this one. And this is great for those. Maybe you have arthritis and it's hard to grab them little ones, so you can grab them like this and pop them off. The T handles, which are really unique, and it's just something that's a total different look in the lineup. You know, just a nice eye catcher.
You know, another one we didn't pull it out is for the car racing guy, that gear shift one. That's a phenomenal one. It's got so it's basically you turn something like this that's round, and then the little plug that you put on top actually has the spotting for a 6-speed transmission on it.
Sure.
It's really great if you know someone who's into cars.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great little bottle stopper.
I think that when we were preparing for this, I went and looked for ones that would be samples, and they showed it before this started. There was a slideshow of I think 20 slides. If you're looking for inspiration, look at Etsy. There are a world of different designs, and as I said, I went this morning and got 20 slides worth in no time flat. So if you can't think of anything to do, which I frequently had when I was doing bottle stoppers, just look at Etsy, make yourself a key of all the samples that are there, and it makes it a whole lot easier. But there are absolutely none that I'm aware of that have pills in them. That just to me is inspired.
Yeah.
Just inspired.
As soon as I seen that, I thought I'm gonna have to make one. Of course, it won't be that nice, but another option is something like this, and it's the same bottom, but instead of just making one small handle for it, you put a handle on each end. So now you've got the bottle opener at this end, and you've got the tab open at this end. So again, this will, if you need to reach under and pop the tab off of, you know, the cans or the bottle itself, and it's all on one tool. So another option, and this comes into play when we were talking earlier about whether or not you're going to finish that bottle. Because let's face it, the biggest problem is once you put a stopper on, especially a stopper this tall, you're not going to put it in the fridge. It's not going to fit in the door. And so wine bottles are tall. I guess that's the incentive to finish it. But in the same token, you want to be able to use your stoppers. So these are other options. Stoppers that fit over the bottle. Now how this works, and again, these are compliment of Dick Singh, and he actually cut this one in half so that we could all see what was going on in this blank. So what we've got is, he starts with a piece of wood and an 1.25 inch Forstner bit. Drill your hole, and it's about an 1 inch and an 1/8 deep. And then in the center of that, of course, you're going to do all of this on a lathe, so that way you know your dowel rods are going to be center. But you're going to use a dowel rod like this, and it's going to be a 3/8 inch hole with a 1/2 inch bottom, so that way your silicone plugs fit on them. And it's going to be glued in there. But of course, you're going to glue that in last, because in other words, you're not going to have a way to hold this on your chuck. But basically, you're drilling your hole out, and then you're going to feed it back on your chuck, and you're going to turn everything else. And you can have all sorts of fun with inlay, the colors, different woods, textures, whatever. And the nice thing about these, they fit over the bottle, so they fit in the refrigerator. So, of course, then you're going to talk about finishes. And I know we've both kind of all been in agreement with this. When you talk about finishes on a bottle stopper, if it's going in the fridge, you're probably going to want to use something like lacquer and stay away from the CAs. If I use CA, it's only to seal the wood itself. Maybe if I've got some open grain or something, I'll put some CA on it and then sand it down. But most importantly, you're going to want to use lacquer because it'll hold up in the cold temperatures.
I always, even with, because I like to use lacquer shot, I always give, the first 2 coats are shellac, only because that fills up all my pores for me really nice.
Yep.
And it makes it a little bit easier for the lacquer then to adhere. and then that way I only need 3 coats of lacquer to get something gorgeous and beautiful. So I'll always pre-coat mine with shellac, and then I'll just put it back on, let it sit 24 hours, put it back on my lathe, 4/0 steel, roll it back down smooth, and then I'll lacquer shot it.
So I guess our next issue then comes to I said, oh, I need a different fridge setup. Yeah, I don't drink a lot of wine. But if I did, I would definitely have to have. I have a shop refrigerator, but sometimes I put resin in that, so I don't want to put my wine with my resin.
So I need to make a bottle stopper for my Snapple bottles.
There you go. So the biggest problem, again, they call them wine stoppers for a reason, right? And Dean, if you want to go to the main shot again, the problem is they're wine stoppers. If you're gonna, and now that we're seeing the industry move towards other liquors, the bourbons and the whiskeys and things like that for stoppers. If you're gonna do those, then you really need to probably get one of those sets that have the 3 or 4 different sizes in it, and then see which one fits the bottle, because none of these bottles are a standard size, and they're all going to be a little bit different, even when it comes to wine. If you're concerned and there's a specific brand, you might want to measure the outside diameter to make sure that 1 inch and 1/4 is going to be enough if you're going to make one that slips over the top of the bottle. I know most of the time I gift these, and so I'll tell the people that I give them to, try them on the bottles, and if it doesn't work, let me know, and I'll order something a little bit larger, and we can try them out. So that's the downside to stoppers. You have to have an assortment of sizes, and it does help if you pay attention to how many O-rings are on these stoppers. Some of the earlier ones only had maybe 3 little rings, and I've bought some that have had 4 and 5, and that just means that as the taper gets larger, you're going to fit. You have a better chance of fitting larger bottles. Other than that, yeah, we're at the mercy of the sizes, so you're going to have to buy some options and try them out.
Yeah, this stopper, you can see is all the way rubber on there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's
They
no
flex more.
So I've got a lot more shot at getting that one in, as long as it's at least a little bit wider than this and thinner
Under
than this.
that. Yep.
It'll catch on almost any of this part.
Yep. And there's a handful of varieties for stopper brands out there, and that's how these are as well. There's more flex in it, so you may get a better seal, or maybe fit in some of them bottles.
You have the stainless steel ones, right? Yeah, those are great.
I like the stainless.
And you
They
have
clean very
Niles
nicely.
too.
Mhm.
Yeah, Niles are phenomenal also.
Yep. So, with that being said, I guess the next challenge is going to be, what do we need to make them? Dean, are there any questions we need to address real quick?
Is it okay if I should just show a couple of the other ones?
Yeah.
The wilder ones.
So no questions that I see, but there was at least one comment that you read only part of that, and the answer is in addition to the different fridge, he says the Nile stoppers can actually stop liquids with the bottle on its side. So
nice.
that's a really
Okay.
nice thing. And then there was one that I don't know if we'll get to later. Mark, somebody had asked what kind of price do you tend to sell bottle stoppers for, and I didn't know if you would care to share later on when you're
I
sharing some of your
have no
stuff.
problem with telling you right now is that I typically, all my stoppers will go from between 38 and 42. So that being said, if it's okay, I'd show a couple other ones.
Yeah.
And we've kind of talked about this one. So obviously some of the other kind of cool things to do is I love, and I know Dawn has some of this on the website. I know I got it from you guys. This bottle stopper blank, which has got a really cool pattern in it. And so what I did was I took it and I basically made it a T for a golf bottle stop or a golf ball. So this is an M&M one that I found. People always get a little bit weird about logos and selling logos and stuff, but if you're making it for a friend, this one is a Chicago Cubs bottle stopper that I've done. I just love doing the M&M one, so I found a whole bunch of golf balls that were M&Ms and the M&M smiley face on it. Then the other thing that I like about doing this stuff is, and I mentioned this probably around Christmas when I was doing some of my other demos, is if you're doing something like the pepper mills that we did, and we have that big chunk and we cut off the little small parts, well, who would want to throw that piece of wood away?
Right.
So that's half wood, half acrylic. This one's another one that's half wood, half acrylic. Who would want to? I can't throw that out. So all I'll do is I'll make it, I'll just thread it like I do anything else. And then I can use tons of scrap that would never be considered scrap. That's just beautiful. But I have this sitting in a bin, a chunk of wood that's just this big. And what am I going to do with it? This is, I'll tell you, you can almost guarantee that this is 2 inches because my pepper mills are 10 inches. I cast them 12 inches long. So I'll usually have an inch or two of scrap left over on the end. And so I just made this one out of that little piece of scrap and that one out of that little piece of scrap that's out there. And then obviously the last one is much like what you're going to talk about.
Spectraply.
Spectraply always gives you just some really cool different variations on what you can do with everything else. And then that one's gorgeous.
Use it on the base. Yeah, a lot of times what you run into, especially on your resin cast, you've got to embed these inserts so that way you can fit the bottom of the stopper in it. So at some point you have to be able to hide that. So what I've done, if I cast something, then I'll go ahead and epoxy, and I'll just use the regular old 5-minute epoxy and a plunger. And this is just the brand I had now. I normally use a Loctite brand, but I will epoxy this on there and let it sit for a day. And that way I've got some solid color, and I've got my insert in the bottom. So now I can screw this onto my mandrel and then turn it to the shape that I need. And my threads are hidden inside. If I were to just use this clear, then the problem is you're going to see that threaded insert, regardless of the brass, the chrome, whatever. You're going to see it inside. So I want to hide that. So I always use something solid.
And that's why I did this.
Yep.
So I made it look like it's sitting on a T, because then I can guarantee you that if you took a look at the B-cert next to it, it just barely fits it in there, so that is the exact height of the B-cert. And then so I have it all hidden. So then this way I don't have to worry about the golf ball. I've got a little bit of a cup in there that I did, and I simply epoxy or super glue the golf ball on it.
Yeah.
And that's the way that you can accomplish something like that.
And this is the same principle. This was using the cork. So the wood was basically a rest or a T for the ball to sit on. And this was done by Dick Singh also, because mine wouldn't look that nice.
But it shows that you can, same thing that we do in pens. If you know something about that person, you can actually customize a bottle stopper to that person.
Yep.
It gives you a little bit more of a platform or palette, if you will, to work with.
Well, like
and you
we
get to
say,
do some bigger stuff.
half the battle of selling something or gifting something is addressing the interest.
Yes.
Right? So whether it be a pen or a stopper or a pepper mill or something, if you can make something that appeals to that person's interest, that's half the battle.
And the difference is, you look at Dick's work, you look at the work that you've done. Once again, for me, one of the things that I talk about when I talk about doing sales and marketing is there something in my booth that they can't get somewhere else? Because one of the things that'll happen inevitably is when you're doing art shows, you're doing craft shows, stuff like that, people are going to price shop. They're going to come into your booth and they're going to go, can I, take a look at it? And then they may go somewhere else. If I have stuff that nobody else has, I welcome them to walk away and look at everything else, because I know that they're not going to find what I have there. And so that's why anytime we do this stuff, I like to just, instead of doing just a wood bottle stopper or an acrylic bottle stopper, I like to do something different that I know that they don't have. And I even do the part where I show them that it can be a bottle stopper and it can be a bottle opener and everything all at one time.
I'm going to make a little bit of room on the top here, and then we can move forward with what we're doing. But this way I don't damage any of this fine work. Keep that out.
So let me get this straight. You're making sure that you keep all Dick's stuff very nice and clean, and my stuff you don't care if it gets.
I haven't got to
slopped.
mine yet either,
If
so
it
we're
gets
just gonna
slopped up.
break the rest of it off. But in short, yes. So that's not mine. That goes in this one. I've got a box down below here, more stuff as we move forward, but we'll get this stuff out of the way because if it's not in front of me, I'm not going to knock it off the table.
Do you want me to move my stuff off?
No, you're fine now. I just this way I can talk about the mandrels and
Yep.
not have anything rolling off the table. So, all right. So let's talk about the mandrels. We've got some options, and once you figure out what works best for you, there isn't any stopper or handle or anything with a threaded insert you can't make. Right? I mean, it's all basically the same setup. You just have to figure out which one you like. So. In my case, I started out first with this one because I didn't know any different.
Mhm.
And these are fine, but if you've ever used the Morse taper and as you're turning it, it pops out on you. And of course, I learned this the other day because I didn't realize it, but I was talking to Dick about this and I said, yeah, I usually use the Morse taper and that way it's got the threads on it. And this end here is basically my bushing. I
Yep.
can't turn below that, and I always leave a little, lip or a rounded edge, something, just as a decorative measure. But every now and then, especially if there's dust inside, where you plug your Morse taper ends in, if there's dust or shavings in it, there's going to be because it's a lathe and that's what you're making. The vibration will cause these to come loose and they'll pop out on you. And as I was discussing this, Dick said, well, why don't you use a drawbar? And my response was, what's that? So this is basically what he was talking about. And all it is, it's a thread all. But here's the catch. This has to go through the outside of your headstock and basically where you would put your knockout bar. And it has to go. This gets seated inside the lathe, and on the back of this, it's threaded, and that's a 1/4 inch thread. So basically, you thread this in until this matches up to the back of your headstock, and this is on the inside, and now that's never going to jump out on you. So I'm in the process of making one. I went to the hardware store, and I bought I think it was a 20-inch, 18 or 20-inch thread all rod, and it's a 1/4 inch thread all, and it threads on just fine. And I'm basically gonna take a 2-inch washer with a 1/4 inch hole, and I'm gonna just turn a handle and epoxy it on there, and then I'll be able to thread that in and it won't fall out.
I did mine basically the same way, but I used a big like fender washer on it to make sure that it wouldn't go up, couldn't go in too much.
It look like a record player when it's
It
on
does.
a record.
It looks like so I've got a big fender washer on it, and then all I did was use a locking washer on it so that
Sure.
that part I don't ever have to worry about it coming out.
So
So
that
it's
was an
funny.
eye opener for me. I'm sorry.
Mine's
Keith,
like
go ahead.
JP. JP Woodwork says my knockout bar is 2 to 3 feet long. LOL. Mine too. I got the threaded rod. I got the fender washer and a couple of lock nuts on the end, and that was it.
Yep.
I didn't make it any fancier.
Yeah, and I mean, just looking at that, that's probably 12 inches is what I'm guessing the depth on the lathe, which is what I
Yep.
have, the same Powermatic. So obviously this isn't going to work for me, so I need something a little bit longer. And it was real simple. All I did was seated this in and then screwed the rod in until it bottomed out, and then turned it out a few turns, and then drew a line on it where I know I want basically it to meet up with my headstock. So, and then I come out another 1.5 inches and cut it off. So when I put my handle on it, it should work just fine.
And I'll tell you, I believe Home Depot sells the threaded rods in aisle 117. First section, aisle 17 is Home Depot's threaded rods. Don't ask how I know how many times I've been there.
So yeah, I really like this mandrel because I'm able to cut threads with it, and I'll cut threads into all the wood ones, and that way if there's any washing to be done, just take the head off, wash the lower half, and then thread it back on. So that's an option. The other option, which is probably what I'm going to use more of now, is something that goes over the headstock. And I've got an adapter here because I was using this on my small jet, but now that I've got the mid-size Powermatic, I needed something a little larger, so I've got this adapter. But basically, it just threads on the headstock over the threads. And it's nice and simple. It's all the same as far as the coarse 3/8 threads. So once this is epoxied in my wood, it screws on. Say it's something like this, and all it's going to do is thread on, and then I'm going to seat it all the way up to the edge of this so it's nice and firm, and then turn my stopper or handle or whichever.
When you do that, does it ever lock up on there, John?
I haven't had a lock on there. I noticed you've got a Delrin washer on yours, and I assume that's mostly for your finishing.
So that's it.
Yeah. And that works just fine as far as finishing. Plus, it looks like your threads are a little, there's a gap. There's probably 1/8 of an inch where your threads stop, and then you've got shaft. So it kind of closes the gap on that.
So if
That
it's
way
okay
it
to
doesn't-
talk a little bit about that one.
Mhm.
So this stopper is the new Easywood.
It's like
It's
a spur
okay to
drive.
just chat.
Mhm.
So this is the new Easywood. This is the new Easywood. Basically bottle stopping manual that they've had. And fortunately I was lucky enough to do some of the testing for them, and I asked them to extend that piece a little bit further. That's the one thing I like about it compared to the one that you have, is that lets me use, especially if I'm using my carbide tools, enough room to get behind that cut and roll my cut up around it. And I've got plenty of room. And all it does is,
It looks like you can cut threads with this one
Yes.
too. So that's nice.
and then Dean, if we can go to the
There we
other
go.
camera, yeah. All this does is, let's see, unscrew it out here. I just basically put it in my, if this was up on my lathe, it'd be a little bit easier to screw it in. But the nice part about it is, it just goes right into
Yep.
that chuck. And the nice thing is, I know that I tested it for them on both a Nova chuck and a couple other chucks, and it locks in really nice. So, and as you can see, as I said, this little bit of extra room here gets me enough room to get a tool up underneath there and make a nice pull cut around it.
Sure.
So, and I do like the added having that nylon on, so it won't ever. I've never had one seize on there. But the other thing that you can do with these things, and I assume you're going to talk about it, is you can also either 3D print a little bushing, if you will, as to whatever your exact outside diameter and your inside diameter are, or use washers.
Mhm.
And then you just take a washer and find a washer that matches that up, and then use the washer or a series of washers as your bushing. For
Well,
those of you who love
and-
doing things with bushings.
Yeah, and the nice thing is, there's no set size that
No.
it has to be.
Right.
So as long as it's this size or larger, it doesn't really matter.
Nope.
And that's the base of all of those are off this diameter. So in a version, an option to that would be a coarse threaded bolt.
Yep.
Which is basically this with the head ground off, and this is Dick's. Big Shock. Dick made his own. And then basically using a washer on here. So this would go in a Jacob's chuck, and then you've got your coarse threads, which is the same as what your inserts are going to thread onto, and you're going to hold this in your Jacob's chuck. And again, this is just a steel bolt with the coarse threads. Now I was doing some looking at the hardware store the other day because I was going to buy one and do it, and they were saying, looking at the different grades, and if you Google, I think grade 8 was what they recommended. You see a lot of grade 5 stuff, but grade 8 is what they recommend because it's harder. And there are harder things like this rod. This is the hardened steel, and this basically comes in also in the Jacob's chuck. But where this comes in handy is when you're using these, because these are a 3/8 inch hole or a rod that are going to be glued in, which is the same as the ones that fit over top of the caps. That's basically how this one was turned. So the hole was drilled, and it fits over the top of this in his Jacobs chuck, and as this is turning, he can get behind it, cut his contour, finish it, sand it, whichever, and then you can pop it out. An easy way to hold it if you want to spray it or lacquer it, whatever you want to do. But just something, another way of holding those work pieces.
I don't know if you're going to get into this one, but you know what? I have got, because they're 3/8 inch, I've got a whole bunch of 3/8 inch eye bolts, and then I've got a board that just has nails in it. And so what I'll do is I'll thread the finished piece on there, and then spray it with my lacquer or shellac, and then just hook them on a board that I have that just has nails on there. And then they all sit, and I can just make a dozen of them at a time, let them sit up there and dry. The next day I'll just go in and then pull them off, throw them back on my lathe, 4/0 steel wool, and then lacquer shot them.
Nice. So, I mean, there's not a lot to making bottle stoppers as far as getting set up. The detail that you put into them is where they count.
Yeah.
When you agree. I mean, getting set up is one thing. And again, you just need to know on these, they have the different sizes. And if you have one for one lathe and then you upgrade like I did, you may have to buy an adapter to be able to fit over the top of that. But
I think there's. I think Ed and Dawn also sell this one, which is the exact same thing that you have, but that's it without the adapter.
right, yes. So again, it really just all comes down to the size, and that's the same size, but this is the adapter for my chuck. So I bought this so that I could use a small chuck on a large lathe, and I need a wrench to get that off. Oh,
That's
there we
okay.
go. But basically, it all comes down to the threads on your lathe, your headstock. So this allows me to use tools for a small headstock on a larger lathe.
Yeah, I've got a Powermatic 3520B, and I just have everything at that 1.1 inch.
Yep. Well, I started with a smaller lathe, and as I've grown, so to speak, as I've gotten into other things, and I was able to get a larger lathe, and then now some of the tools that don't fit, I have to figure out how I'm going to make them adapt. So
And you now have what? Powermatic?
I do.
Yeah.
I definitely do. I have a Jet, a Powermatic, and a Delta. So I don't know how many lathes a guy needs, but I keep telling my wife one more wouldn't hurt. So
I've got one dedicated just for finishing.
yeah, I've got one for buffing, and then one for
Yep.
2 for turning, 1 for buffing. But I
Yep.
use a chuck on one all the time in my setup of other products. So.
I keep my Beal wheels on a small little dedicated lathe that I was able to pick up real cheap, but it just sits there. And the nice part about it is I then go through the step of actually going through the buffing process because it's not a big pain. I don't have to take everything off my big lathe and putting it back on. I've got just a little lathe that I picked up at a garage sale, and it's dedicated in there. It's on a Shopmate workhorse, so I don't even have the legs to it. I just plopped it up on that thing, and it's nice to keep my Beal buffing system on them. And the less work I have to do, the more chance I will actually do all that work.
Well, and that's, speaking of buffing, that's what I like about this mandrel.
Oh yeah.
I like this because if I'm going to, after I've lacquered it and I want to come back a few days later and buff it, it's real nice to just hang on to this, take it to the buffing wheel and work it, and it gives me something to hold on to. And I suppose a thread all, 3/8 thread all, or a
Oh
longer
no,
bolt would be
the
just
ones
fine.
with the eye bolts.
Yeah.
You can just hold on
Just
to
hold
the
the
eye bolt
bolt.
and let it sit there.
So I find the worst thing I can do is not have a good grip on something, when you're trying to lightly buff it, because that one small,
I'll tell you, I know that for a fact.
it never
I think
fails.
the ceiling in my basement
Yeah.
knows it a couple times, and every time that it knows it,
Mhm.
I give out a big sigh of relief that it found out that I shouldn't have done that.
It's amazing how far a stopper or something will ricochet and bounce, and you never know where it'll end up. But I've broke a few things that I really wished I hadn't
Yeah.
in that process. So anytime that I can put something like that on a stopper, or sliding pen blanks onto a rod to hold the rod, as opposed to just trying to hold something small, it definitely helps.
But to get back to a point that Ed made really early in this conversation is some of the areas we're going into now. There's not a lot of expense to getting into bottle stoppers if you're into pen making.
Right.
If
Absolutely.
you're into pen making, you have all the tools that you need.
Yeah.
You have all
the finishing.
the finishes that you need. You've got all the sandpaper you need. You've got the chuck. all you're really looking to do is invest in something like
Some sort of a mandrel.
some sort of a mandrel to hold it on, and then these B-certs.
Yep.
If you want to do the B-cert route,
Right.
you can thread it yourself.
You can thread them all day long.
But I'll tell you, the B-cert route is the way to go.
Yeah.
And one thing we didn't talk about was the nice thing about the B-cert is if there was some reason that you really, really wanted to wash the bottom,
you can take them off.
you could take the wooden part off, throw it in your dishwasher, let it dishwash the bottom of it. I'd be a little worried about, with the rubber on
The
there.
silicone?
I'm
You'd
not.
be okay.
I'm not a big fan of doing that, but
Yeah.
I'd run it under the water.
Yeah, I would
and
probably
I have no
hand
problem.
wash it.
Yeah, I'd hand wash it underwater.
But and that's even with the wooden ones though. I've tapped myself with this one. I'll just unscrew them off and wash the bottom of it, and then just screw them back on.
That's what I do with all my pizza cutters.
But I will say you're right when it comes to using. If you're going to do something and you're going to remove the top a lot, it isn't hard to cross thread something as fine as threads in a piece of wood or resin and break it off, and you may run into problems down the road with excessive removal. So the inserts really come in handy. And what are they? A pack of 5 for a couple of bucks. I mean, they're very inexpensive.
And Don have them here. That's part of the deal this afternoon.
So yeah, the threaded inserts, and what's really great about them is they work for the bottle stoppers, they work for the pizza cutters, the ice cream scoops, all the kitchen utensil stuff. It's all the same insert. So if you have those inserts, you can make all those things with them. You're not limited to just bottle stoppers.
So, seeing one of the questions, where do I get these containers? Give me a minute while we're doing one of the giveaways. I'll look it up. I'm 99% sure I picked these up either on Amazon.
I was gonna say everything's on Amazon.
I'm going to say
anymore.
on Amazon or the place where you told me
What
about
is it? A
the
6-inch, 5.5.
5.5 inch. Let me double check. I'm
Yeah.
99% sure I picked these up right on Amazon.
Yeah, it's either that or Uline.
That would be the only.
And
other
I'm sure
place I-
Amazon's probably got them. What are they? 1.5 by 5.5, and
The nice thing about it is if you're doing shows, they're great for that. The other nice thing is if you're doing it as a gift, there's something a little bit nicer about handing it off as a gift like that.
you can display them without them falling over,
Uh-huh.
and people can pick them up and look at them without really getting their hands into them.
Yep.
So yeah, that's nice.
So I picked up like 100 pack or something like that. So yeah, when we have a break, I'll try to look up exactly where I got it. Any other questions, comments? I see Anthony showed up. Nice to see you again, Anthony.
Dean, anything to add?
I don't think so. Nothing at the moment.
Okay. All right. Well,
We
should
should
we
say
get
you-
I'm
into?
gonna slip this back over here while you're
Move
getting
some
going.
of
So-
this stuff off the table.
So what I can do while you're moving things around, I can talk a little bit here. I suppose I can put my
Yes,
face
sir.
up in
Go
the
ahead.
corner. The special for tonight is on the website already on the homepage. It's a 4-pack of bottle stoppers, a 4-pack of the B-certs, and it will come with domestic wood bottle stopper blanks to go with it. So for the price of what would normally be the bottle stopper and the B-certs, you're getting a blank with it as well. Those are 4-packs. Those are available. What's going to come up a little later is I did say that tonight's giveaway is going to be different. It's not going to be a giveaway per se in the same sense. What it'll be is late in the show, I will be putting a product live on the website, and I will be giving a code, and the first 12 people to add them to the cart and check out get that item for free. So if you've got something, you're adding up some stuff and putting bottle stoppers into your cart, wait till the end so you get that, so you can add one of the freebies in as well. So we're gonna cast first, then, John, or are you gonna turn first?
Nope,
Who's
we're
up
gonna pour
next?
one real quick. Let's get into the guys that want to pour something different. Let's just cast one, only because I really want to mess up this tabletop. So now we're gonna be very gentle. We're gonna be very delicate. I hope. In fact, we'll pull this off,
Yeah.
and when I do that, I'll keep this and this out.
Somebody did make a good comment that in those plastic containers, Uline is also an excellent place for that type of.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
John said. And when
Yeah.
I'm looking them up now, I did look them up on the side. It was Uline where I picked them up. And the cool part about it is, as we're driving home, we will pass Uline in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So there, it was Uline where I got them.
You want to just put this on top of there, John?
If you want.
Yeah.
And I've got a silicone mat to go on top of that, so
Oh, okay.
I just don't want to. I don't want to make a mess on this. All right. That's been used a few times. So here's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be using a casting rack like this. And the reason I use this, it's 1.5 inches, and as you can see, it allows me to use different things. This will be an ice cream handle. And I cast that to look like vanilla and chocolate swirl. And the nice thing about it is, if you cast something and maybe you only like parts of it, you can come in here and cut it in half and make stoppers out of it. Or you can just cast large objects like this and cut them to the length you want, and that way you're not pouring a bunch of small ones. You can get more done at one time if you're making a bunch of stopper blanks. This case, the cicada shell. I don't know if that's visible, but you can see the cicada in there climbing on. I never did turn it, but I've got a stick with the cicada shell. That was after the outbreak of the cicadas. Was it a year or so ago? Year and a half. Another dandelion floating around in there, so that'll be a future stop.
John, is it okay to interrupt? Ed has these. They're on the website, the plastic.
Oh, Ed has. Okay, so those plastic containers that Mark had them in, Ed actually sells them here at Exotic Blanks and has them in stock. So this is what I was talking about earlier. This is when I cast a floating skull in there and then cut the bottom off and then glue a small piece on the bottom, just a little bit taller than the B-cert. That way you can't see the threads, and it still allows you to have some clarity and hide those threads. So we're going to use this rack. Let me get all this stuff out of the way. Because we're dealing with resin, it's a urethane resin. We're using Alumilite tonight. Alumilite white. And I chose Alumilite white because it sets up in 10 to 15 minutes. It's got about a 2 to 3 minute working time. And you'll actually be able to see it before it's time to go home. So we can actually finish something. Make sure I brought the right stuff. Yep, white. A and B, this is how your resin's going to show up. Depending on the quantity that you buy, you're going to have two sides, an A and a B. And with these, it's equal amounts by weight. I'm using these clear plastic cups. I also use a drill to mix. The most important part tonight, the mold. So I'm going to use the clear plastic mold. Now this is a rack that Ed and Dawn have, and again I pour all my stoppers and handles on them because it's just convenient to pick up, pour them all, drop them in a pressure pot, pressurize them up, and I don't have them falling over and making a big mess. I'm going to use these rings, which is a top cap and a bottom. Need a pair of scissors. And a rag. Shop rags are always a must. So what we're going to do is we're going to weigh this out, equal parts of A and B. Normally I would label my cups because I'll keep using them throughout the day, but I'm only going to do one, so we're not going to worry about that. So I'm going to turn my scale on. Now, I really need to change the batteries. I'm not going to be real concerned about how much I mix because I just want you guys to kind of see how easy this is, right? There's very little to it. If I were going to pour something alive like this, what I would do is take this out, put it in the oven on a cookie sheet, warm it to about 225, 215, probably for about an hour or two, and make sure it's good and dry. This resin doesn't like any type of moisture, and even though it may have been in the shop in a box, air drying for a year or two, like pine cones and acorn caps and all that other fun stuff, it still holds moisture from humidity, and that will cause foam in your resin.
I've actually, when I've done my first couple Worthless Woods, when I was new to it, I thought, well, this has been out and it's really, really dry.
Yeah.
And then I did it, and you will see minute bubbles where the resin, no matter what, and then you turn those off. And then the problem is, as you turn those off, new bubbles pop up somewhere else on the other side. So
Yeah,
now
you may see a white film in there.
Yeah.
You may see, some type of foaming going on.
I don't care how old my wood is, it always goes in my oven.
This came from PetSmart for the aquariums.
Yeah.
And this I'm going to scrub it because it kind of has I don't know if it's a disinfectant, but some sort of a powder on there, whether it just be from how it's processed or boiled, because I know they boil all these to clean them, but I thought it would be kind of cool as a stopper because it's very large, but it's just an option. So obviously, if you're going to use clear resin, you're going to have more time to do, say, color pours. Say if you want to do a color pour, and this was black and silver, obviously you're never going to know what you get until you cut into it and turn it, so you're not going to be able to see all the character inside. But in order to ensure yourself really cool character, you want to pay attention to your temperature. And so these temperature gauges are great because it allows you to just point and shoot, and then it gives you a reading of what it is here on the front. And I'll say anytime you're doing a color cast, the closer you can let your resin get to between 95 and 115, based on how many colors you're going to pour, how long it's going to take you. The warmer the resin, the better for good color separation. If you pour it too soon, colors like orange and blue are going to swirl together and make brown. So if you can keep that resin warm enough before you pour it, you're going to keep those colors separated in your resin. And temperature is the way to do that. Now, tonight, what I'm going to do is something real simple. I went to the local grocery store, Kroger, and I picked up a box of colored pasta. It was on sale for 99 cents. So large room for profit in this world when you're talking about making things out of pasta. But what we need to do is figure out the size of our pour. So the first thing, these are going to come depending, what are they, 12 inches when they come from here. And you're going to get these caps to basically put them on the bottom. Now, if you're not using urethane resin and you're going to use epoxy, because epoxy takes days to cure and not hours or minutes, there's a potential for some leakage under pressure. So what I would recommend is if you're using epoxy with any type of mold like this, put some tape, just masking tape, whatever, clear tape, anything you have, around the seal and just fold it over the bottom. That way, as it sits, there's no room for that resin to come out. Now, I'm going to leave this tall, but I'm just going to show you. You can come in here, measure how tall you want it, and just cut them off with scissors. I try to get them as close to flat on top as I possibly can, and then snap these top caps in. And what that cap does, it allows me to pour into it, but it keeps the shape. It keeps the roundness. Without that, this could flex under heat, and then when you're done, you're not going to have something that's 1.5 inches. It's going to bow or flex. So I put the top caps in. That way, when it's in the mold, I know I'm keeping a uniform shape. It's going to keep its roundness for the most part.
And all those caps and stuff are available through Ed, right?
Exactly. Everything, this rack, the tubes, the caps, the upper and lower, everything is here at Exotic Blanks. So they've done all the hard work and sourced everything and put it all together for you. You don't have to worry about that. And the best part about it is these are HDPE, so as you use them, you're going to get resin on them. And this resin, I have gloves on, so it ain't going to flake off now. But this resin just pops right off. And it's real simple. All this stuff comes off very easily if you decide you need to clean it. I rarely clean them because I'm pouring them all the time. This one here is probably 10 years old. I've got 2 more at home. I started out, they were wood, and the wood, they'll last for a couple of years. And then as you use them, the wood starts to absorb the vapors in the pressure pot, and it starts to build up in all your edges. And before you know it, the tubes don't fit in the holes anymore. So, and then they crack and they break. So
I've got a wood one you gave me probably 8 or 10 years ago. And because it was one that you did, I keep it as a memorial and I don't use it because I just love having it.
Had I known when I started that I was going to be doing demonstrations on resin casting, I would have kept my first wooden rack too, but I stepped on it and broke it and I threw it in the garbage. And that's when I said I'm making them out of HDPE. And I made the first few that I have, and I had a few people at a couple of my demonstrations come up and say, "Hey, where can I get one of those? I want one of the racks." And I said, "Well, you're gonna have to make them like I did." And they weren't fun, especially the pen ones, because I have 36 holes. It sucker's 9¼ inches with 36 holes in it, so I can cast 36 blanks at one time. And to get them perfectly round, I cut them on the table saw with a jig, and they were flying off a few times, and I almost lost a finger. I'm like, nope, never again. So,
Well, the nice
thankfully-
thing about that is it fits in the 2.5 gallon pressure pot perfectly.
yes, yeah, I've never had a problem with these fitting in any pressure pot. They're either too big or there's fine room.
Yep.
But that's the nice part about them. And like I said, they work real easy. The sad thing is, when you buy one, you never have to buy another one unless you need another one, right? You never have to replace it because they last forever, and that's the nice thing about them. The wood ones, not so much, but these, I mean, you can drop and kick them, throw them, it doesn't matter. This HDPE is so durable, it's never going to break on you, and it's just such a versatile rack because I can cut these tubes as high as I need them to be, as long as my tank is deep enough for them to fit in it. I never have to worry about that being a problem. And again, it's easy to pick them up and drop it in the pressure pot without it spilling or falling.
So if you're
over.
making a pizza cutter handle or any of that other stuff, it's just a taller
You
tube.
just make them taller, yeah. And again, I'll come in here and I'll figure out how long I want to make these tubes and just draw a mark on it. Cut them about a 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch above that, and that way when I pour my resin, I'm not overflowing the top, right? I have that cap on it, and I pour just up to the base of it, and
I actually find these easier to cast than pens because at the pen you're still trying to keep the tube pretty much centered with the wires and things like that.
yeah.
This, you just put that other piece of plastic. So if you haven't
Yeah.
done a lot of casting, this is actually an easier way to break into it.
this is the easiest way as far as casting something because there's no way to mess it up. And the best part is these caps come off, and then you just reuse them on the next one. So, and I've got caps that I've been using the same caps for 15 years, almost 20 years. So, yeah, and I just keep them on there now just for the sake of showing people that they're reusable
They're
and they
so
come
easy
off.
to
But
pop off.
if there's a problem and they don't come off, I take my channel locks and just open them up and go above and below it and just wiggle them and they pop off. And then once they're off, they're off. You know, there's no issue. So you can slip them back on if you want to, but they pop right off. So now that we know, basically there's our mold. And again, you can use prescription bottles. I mean, in the one I use, the mica powder bottle, right? You can use Dixie cups. I mean, the sky's the limit when it comes to anything. Yeah. You can buy smaller cups, you know, and just basically when your resin is done, just keep topping them off. And then when you're all said and done, I can tell you that this is a 12-ounce cup because it's embedded now in the resin. But it's all about recycling that resin. Why throw it in the garbage if you can just pour it in a small container and then utilize it later to make something like a bottle stopper? So once I get my rack, now with something like this, I'm just going to take these pasta noodles. If I were at home, I'd put these on a cookie sheet, I'd put them in the oven, and I'd warm them up for about 30 minutes, around between 210, 220. I like to make sure I've got all the colors going on. Well, here so you can see it. That way, they're not all piling up in the same area. But I want randomness. So,
Is it okay to ask you a quick question on this?
Yeah.
Have you ever? I've had where I worry about float. So what I'll typically do is put in about a quarter of them, pour it, quarter more noodles, pour it and quarter. But you don't have any problem with the way you're doing it this way, so that works great.
So, well, because they're heavy.
Okay.
If it were something like pine cones, small pine cones,
I
They're gonna
definitely do
float.
that with pine cones.
they're going to float.
Okay.
They're definitely going to float. So what I would do, I take a small piece of Daco mesh. Go to Hobby
Yep.
Lobby. You can buy Daco mesh ribbons or rolls about that wide, and they come out that big around. And it's basically 1/4-inch holes of a woven fabric, like a real stiff fiber, and just cut something larger than this over it, and just stick it over the top.
That's how you showed me. Yep.
Nothing floats out. You can pour right through it.
Yep.
So I do that all the time. In something like this, I really only need up to about here in this mold, but I'm going to fill more than I want. That way, when I top it off, I know that all of these objects can go continuously through the mold, and they don't just stop, and then I wind up with a chunk of solid resin. Now, because we're using one color, I can pour my resin when it's very thin. I don't have to wait for it to get warm. I don't have to worry about color separation because we're just pouring one color. And in this case, we're going to pour white because other than if I had some Cheerios or Fruit Loops in here, I mean, it would be, in representation of milk. But in something like this, it just looks good because the white color allows these pasta noodle colors to pop through it. So I like white with something like this. So I'm going to take basically and say, I could measure this. So I get people to ask me all the time, how do you know how much resin to use? What I do is experiment at home and I keep notes. I should have looked at the page before I came here. I've got a sheet of paper that tells me how many 6-inch blanks I need and how much resin of A and B to fill all of them appropriately.
It's 2 pi RH.
Right. But we're not all mathematicians. And I'll be honest with you.
It's 2 pi RH.
You still have to accommodate for all of the area that your objects are encasing. So in this case, be prepared to waste a little bit of resin, right? That's just what you're going to do. I'm obviously going to mix a little more than I need to.
But that's why, seriously, when we talked about it earlier, that's why I'll have another bottle stopper blank possibly sitting there, or a bottle stopper tube, or I'll have a mold for my pen blanks, and I'll just pour whatever I can into whatever excess I have into the other thing, and I might have an extra. I might make a pen blank or something out of it.
All right. So here's something else that'll happen on you. A lot of times, I never leave home without them. If you're going to get into resin casting, get some channel locks. B-side, for some reason, it will always crust up on the threads on these on these jugs, and it'll kind of lock it all in there so that you can't get them done. So what I like to do is put a little downward force, come in here and squeeze onto it just enough to pinch it, and then turn it. And then I'm able to take it off there. And then what I would do is I'll take a bamboo skewer. It's got a point to it, and I'll get in there and I'll just kind of go around the edge and clean the threads. But for the most part, this wasn't coming off so easily because I haven't opened it in probably 2 weeks. Because I've been too busy pouring clear. So we'll just wipe that off now. As you can see, the crust on it, right? That's just what gets in the threads. So I have, zero this out. Got 100 grams. So we're going to go 100 grams of B. Yeah, a little much, about 25 grams over. And this is why I use 2 separate cups. So that way, if I go over, I can pour it back in, and I don't have to worry about adding more of the other. If I were pouring this in one container, and I over poured one side, now I've got to think, all right, I need an extra 20 grams of that. So now I've got to pour back into the mix. It's so much easier to just weigh them both out individually, and then you can just mix them together.
John, there's a question in the chat. How far does your scale go? Does it do tenths, hundredths? Do you actually go any smaller than a full gram?
I just use grams. There is, so for the most part, grams is a small enough measurement that if it's any smaller than that, it's not going to have any bearing on your resin. When I'm working with clear resins, they always say go by equal weights. I always add extra B. So if I'm pouring 300 grams of A, I'll pour maybe 350 grams of B. I always use extra B because if you have too much A, that's when your resin gets cloudy. You can never really have, I've never over added B and had a problem with it. It's usually, if there's not enough B, it will stay foggy and a little cloudy. You're more worried about how much time it took you to mix it properly and getting it in the mold. If you don't have it mixed properly, your clear resins are going to be cloudy. They might have white film and swirl in them.
You'll see the wisps.
Yes. And normally it's around the edge of the molds.
Yep.
So if you're just starting out, don't use white. White is too short. It cures too quickly on you. You won't have enough working time to really get your technique down. If you're just starting out with resin, you really want to learn how to do it and play and get experience, use Clear Slow. Alumilite Clear Slow. Don't buy Amazing. Just buy the urethane Clear Slow. That'll give you 12 minutes of working time. That's more than enough time to add A and B together, mix it properly, add your colors, divide it whichever, and you'll build your process down, and then you'll build your confidence, and things will get quicker for you.
The only challenge with slow is it's going to take you a long time before you can mix your colors together.
So it does, and I spoke to a gentleman on the phone the other day. He was using Clear Slow, and he said, man, 12 minutes isn't that much time.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, when I first started, I was so worried about time. I undermixed my resin and I poured it and it didn't turn out very well.
Mm-hmm.
And I spoke to a gentleman about it, and who had been casting longer than me. And he said, don't worry about the clock. Worry about mixing your resin properly. And of course, now that I never mix just this much resin. If I have 100 grams of resin,
well, the problem with mixing smaller things is error.
yes.
Is the smaller that you get, that chance for error on. Sorry, is that what you were going to just talk about?
Yep.
I'll let you go.
It is. I've had people tell me, well, I mixed 50 grams of A and 50 grams of B, and for some reason it didn't turn out. And I said, the problem is you're not mixing enough resin. If you're using a little bit of resin, you have a little bit of room for error. If you're using a lot of resin, you have a much larger area for your weighing and your mixing errors to occur, because it's harder to mix properly small amounts of resin. For one thing, it's too tiny to get in there and try to stir a little cup. It's much easier if you're going to pour 3 colors to set 3 cups in front of you, mix all of your resin at one time, and then divide it. Don't mix each individual cup and think that you're going to have time, because now they're all going to cure at their own rate. And your first resin that you mix is going to cure quicker than your last. So you're going to get sags. You're not going to get that equal color separation. You're going to have problems.
I did that the first time.
Me
where
too.
I thought, I want to do a red, white, and blue one. So I started my red, then I started my blue, and then by the time I got down to, I wasn't using the white. I was actually using
the clear.
the clear, and oh my god, the temperature was like almost 14 degrees, 15 degrees difference on it.
I think even back then, it was before the urethanes that we know now were even available. When I started, everything was pretty much water clear.
Yeah.
That's all there was. Your Alumilite didn't have the whites. They didn't have the Clear Slows and clears. They had water clear. And, this was almost 20 years ago. Our limitations were very small as far as what we could play with and what we could do with it. And thankfully, all these companies have realized that there's a potential for growth, and they've made things to suit our needs.
Well, remember the original clears too were brittle as heck. I mean, I remember we've joked about it, right? If it's okay, is the first couple snakeskin ones, people were saying use a car sanding thing to sand it down.
Sand them all.
Sand them all. Don't try to turn it.
Right.
You're not going to get it turned.
Yep. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to mix A and B together. And again, this is white. The bottle used to say 3-minute working time. Now I think it says 2. And normally what I would do is well, there they are. At home, I'll have my safety glasses. I'll have my nitrile gloves. I usually have an old shirt on. So I'm going to try not to get anything on my smock. Old shoes, because if you drop something, where's it going to go? On your feet. So I always have shop shoes that I wear, and they've got resin stains on them. But have shop clothing. When you get into resin casting, make sure that whatever you're going to do, you might as well pick that cup up and wipe your hands off on your clothes, because that's where it's going to end up at, right?
Is it okay to say one quick story? So last week, it was the wildest thing. My neighbor across the street, who I don't know very well, was having a party, and it turned out that one of the people at the party knew me from where I lived a town over, and she said, "Hey, I recognize that car. Is that Mark?" And he goes, "Yeah, I don't really know his name, but he dresses like a bum. And it was because
Yeah.
I walk outside to get the mail. I've got my filthy clothes on. I've got my casting clothes on. I've got my turning clothes on. My neighbors think I'm a bum living in my house.
Well, it's not uncommon for me. I know I keep putting this off before we mix it, but it's not uncommon for me to change clothes at least twice, if not
Yeah.
3 times a day. I'll get out of bed in the morning. I'll put shop clothes on.
Yep.
I go straight to the shop. I'm getting dye. I'm getting resin splatter. I'm getting whatever on me all day long, glue, everything else. And then my wife will come home and say, "Hey, I thought we'd go to dinner." So I'll run upstairs. I'll change clothes, get cleaned up. We'll go out to dinner, and then we'll come home and I'll put my shop clothes back on and go right back to the shop. So you have to have shop clothes, because if not, all your clothes are going to be ruined. So get you some old T-shirts. Keep your old tennis shoes around. They're
Yeah.
great for working with resin. So when I first started out, I was using these bamboo chopsticks, and I always joke about it and say the local Chinese restaurants are very, very supportive of my habit, because every time I go there to eat, they give me a pair of these. But honestly, they work really great. It's the right size. A dowel rod would work well too, but for some reason, I've always just kind of stuck with the chopsticks. I use these for mixing all of my polyester resins. I won't use a drill with that. But as I've grown to cast more things and larger things, it's not uncommon to cast 6, 8, maybe 1,000 grams at a time. What I like to do now is use a drill. And as you can see, this is a designated resin drill. This old Craftsman has been in use for forever. And I took a spade bit. And if you've ever seen any of my demos, you know what I've done. I broke the tip off, rolled this on a belt sander, just rounded everything off to make it nice and smooth, put it in there, and I'll use that for mixing resin.
Can I ask, one of the things that people will ask all the time is, when people talk about going into a drill, and you probably are going to get into this one, people are so concerned that you're going to put bubbles in it.
Yep,
So-
I am.
Go ahead.
So here's the thing. Urethane resins, a lot of people don't know this, but when urethane resins cure, they generate gas. They generate their own bubbles. And so as they cure and get harder, they off-put this gas, and not all of them float out. So if you're not putting it under pressure, there's no point in casting it, because you need that pressure to compress all those air bubbles. And don't mistake that with vacuum. I had a gentleman reach out to me and he said, "Hey, I did everything that you told me to do. I mixed the resin properly. I got it all in the tank, and I pulled the vacuum on it, and I let it sit overnight." And I said, wait a minute. The problem is, when you pull a vacuum on something, you're actually expanding all that air. So this was a really good education moment. And I asked him, I said, "Would it be okay for me to use these in my demonstrations? Because it's not something I've done yet myself. And now that I've seen what happens, I'm definitely going to do this for a YouTube channel." But the air bubbles that you create and that the gases create from mixing and curing, they expand. As that vacuum is pulled on it, everything gets larger. So it comes out of the mold, it comes down onto your racks, and those bubbles that may have been the size of a pen head are now the size of pencil erasers. So you need pressure when you're working with resin, not vacuum. Vacuum is for stabilizing, and that's a whole different story. These resins are actually mixed to compress the air under pressure and not pull air out of things. So with that said, with a small amount like this, I usually look at the thinner side, and I'll pour the thinner into the thicker. I almost spilled it. I almost felt like I was at home. So you can sit here like this and mix. And as you can see, it'll start out a little cloudy, because that's just what the resin does when it mixes. But the more you stir it, the clearer it will get. Even though this resin is going to cure white, it will actually stay in a clear form until it starts to get heat and before it starts to cure.
I like to have Alexa counting down for me.
I don't worry about time anymore. I used to worry about time. Now
Go on, this stuff I do.
I only worry about temperature. So we're at 90. Get a good read here. Now we're at 102.
Yep.
We're at 103. We're at 104. So we're climbing. Don't panic. I'm going to come in here and mix this up real good. It doesn't take a lot because this stuff is really thin. Now I'm going to pour it in a mold, but just out of curiosity. 117. So we're going to come in here. We're going to pour it. We want to pour it when it's thin enough to get around everything. Because we're not worried about color, that's all we're going to do. Now at this time, I would take this and put it in a pressure pot. I didn't bring one because there's no point in you watching me put something in a pressure pot. But just so that you can see what happens, as this resin gets hot, it's basically, we're at 140. Dean, if you want
It's going.
to zoom in on that, Dean. I don't know how much you're going to see through the cup, but when it starts to kick, you're going to know. We're at 148, and as I move around the cup, it changes because that in the center says 157. But I can tell you, as it starts to kick, it gets thicker, and I don't know if you can see the color, but bam, there it went. And as that color hits, if you don't have it in the tank, you're done. That's 169 degrees right there, 170 degrees. If I hadn't poured that in my mold, there was no point in it because now there's no way you're going to pour that. And that's how fast white sets up.
And the white's setting around the pasta as we speak.
Yes.
It started changing.
So as it starts to change in the pasta, because it wasn't as thick, it wasn't as large of a volume, it will take a little bit extra time. But once it starts to kick, you're done. So basically this would have been in a pressure pot, and I would have put this basically under about 40 pounds, 45, at the most 50 pounds of pressure. Everybody says, oh, use 70, use 80 pounds. Nonsense. There's no reason. I've cast everything from a pen blank all the way up to a bowl blank under 50 to 55 pounds of pressure, and I've never had a problem. So there's no point in creating a bigger issue because if it fails, the more pressure in it, the bigger problem you're going to have.
You have a recommendation on pressure pots?
Honestly, it comes down to what you like. I like the California Air.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Um,
I just feel they're a little safer.
but you know what?
Go ahead.
I know over the years we've heard so many people. I'm going to sit so I can actually see me, but so many people have talked about Harbor Freight pressure pots and how dangerous this stuff is. I only know of one person that ever had a problem, and my phone keeps talking to me. Sorry. Years ago. Boy,
To who?
earlier she was saying something else too. Here's the thing about pressure pots. All right, you're gonna put your resin molds in them. You're gonna seal the top. You're gonna put your clamps up on them, hand tighten them down real well. And as you look at a pressure pot, you're gonna see they're kind of concave on the lips. That's a safety issue. So once the valve, you want to grab one in the other room?
Yeah.
Okay?
I'll take care of that.
Once the clamps are tightened down to it, it can't slip off. There's nowhere to go. So as long as you don't modify those pressure pots, use them the way they're designed. Use them in a way that the only thing that can happen is you either forget to put air in them. Not that I've ever done that.
Okay, put it on the table.
Yeah, go ahead, set it right up there. As you look at the top of this, you're going to see it's not one big dome, right? It's got these. This one is really nice because it's got these hooks on them, right? And these clamps come up with these giant washers, and they fit over the top. And now it can't back off because it's got a lip here. This might not be tight, but it still can't go anywhere. And so you've got 4 of them around your tank. You tighten them all equally, and I always go cross like lug nuts. I'll start here, and then I'll go here.
Yep.
And once they get tight, I do them at the same time, and then I do opposites over here at the same time. That way I know everything is equally tightened down, and I'm not putting any flex on anything. And then I close the valve. As long as the valve's closed when I hook my air hose onto it, I'm not flooding this with air. If I leave it open and I hit the air valve on here, or the air hose, if I don't regulate how the air goes in, what happens is all that air rushes in, hits my resin, and blows it out of the mold. So if I close the valve, put my air on it, and then slowly open it and bleed air into it, and then I'm just watching my pressure gauge until I get it to about 45, 50 pounds, and then I close it, disconnect the hose, and I walk away from it. There's no accidental overinflating it because the air hose isn't connected anymore. I've still got my safety valve over here if need be. I have had a few of these fail on me over the years, and you may have to replace them. Never in this model, but in the older, the Harbor Freight ones.
Well, that's what I like about the California Air is that there's no modifications.
Right.
I mean, the Harbor Freight one, you do make a couple little.
They come
adjustments.
set up.
Yeah.
And this one's actually rated to 80 pounds of pressure. I don't feel there's any need to go that high, but it is rated to 80 pounds, and your tanks will tell you how much they're rated for on top. So my recommendation has always been, I like to stay about 10 pounds under the recommended maximum level on a tank. So if it says 60, I'm only going to go to 50. If it says 80, I'll only go to 70. But honestly, I don't feel any need to go over 50 or 60 pounds. In a tank like this, I probably wouldn't go any more than 60. And I'm only going to maybe exceed to 60 as opposed to my regular 50. If I'm using something, something that's got a lot of little holes, maybe something wormholes or something, and I'm trying to get resin deep in that kind of stuff, then I might use a little extra pressure. But for the most part, these tanks are pretty cut and dry. I've made more tanks from Harbor Freight paint spray pots than I've bought. But where I've bought tanks are the larger stuff, the 5 and the 10 gallon ones, because sometimes you just need a bigger tank. I've got one that's about this big around. It's great for casting platters. I've got some that are taller because I've done other projects. I made a set of reproduction bighorn ram horns, and so I needed something a little deeper than what these would go. So some of these larger ones, you can fit a 5-gallon bucket in them, which works great for basically a mold caddy to just drop your bucket in as well.
Yeah, the conversation on the side is
John,
once you go to California Air, you're never going to go back to anything else.
Yeah.
And I agree with that.
I agree. I love California Air. They are set to be used for resin casting.
And if it was up to me, I would buy the one size slightly bigger than this, the 5-gallon one.
Yeah.
These are the 2.5 gallon. If you're going to do it, because then that way, the next step is if you're going to do a pepper mill or something like that.
It all comes down to your investment, though,
Yep.
right? You're going to buy a 5-gallon for probably close to what, $300, $280, $300 for a 5-gallon tank. Where
280's right. Yep, 300.
you can spend, $100.50, I think, on these roughly. I spent over $500 for my 10-gallon tanks on both of them. It was over $500, and I've only used them a couple of times. But there was no substitute for them.
Yeah.
And what I was casting in them, was something for somebody else. So I just had to do it. But,
Well, that's why I always ask you to do all my casting for me.
Jaime asks, is there any, how did he put it? Went past. Is there any problems with going higher pressure? Is there issues? And I think it's just staying within your safety measure more than anything, but is there is there anything that can go wrong with the blanks if you go higher?
So I guess within reason, obviously, if my tank is rated to 60 pounds and I put 60 pounds in instead of 40 or 50, you're not going to see a difference. No. For me, it's a comfort zone of knowing that I'm not creeping up on the maximum limitations of this tank, because these are made by a man, by some guy or some person somewhere. They're all individually made, and I've had tanks leak. I've had welded seams on them that gave out where I had to take the tank back and replace it. Thankfully, that's only happened once. I had it once on the side, and I had it once in the lid on a separate tank. So, I don't know how you guys feel about that, but no, you're not going to see a difference in the molds, other than as long as your molds are adequate enough to stand up to that pressure. If you're using something that's maybe not strong enough, you may start to crush your mold in, but just maybe test it. Pour one before you pour a bunch of them.
So what's the old adage with any of this stuff is I would buy the higher end thing cry once when I bought it than buy the lower end one and cry every time I have to use it.
Sure.
So
Sure.
with these things, these California Airs, they're spectacular.
Yeah. And honestly, if you take care of them, they'll last you forever. They'll last you a lifetime. I joke a lot now, only because my wife always comes home from work and tells everybody that I'm retired, and I sit on the couch watching soap operas, eating bonbons every day. But so my joke is, I have to say I'm a full-time resin caster. But honestly, that's all I do now is shop. I'm in the shop all day, all morning, all evening. My wife goes to bed because she gets up to go to work early in the morning, and I go back to the shop. So if it's not uncommon for me to pour maybe 300 to 500 blanks over a weekend. So I've got, on an average right now, I think I've got 5 or 6 2.5 gallon tanks, and I usually use 3 of them at a time, because I'll pour this tank, set it aside, and for the next hour and a half while those are curing, I'm pouring the next tank. And by the time I get through with the third tank and I set it aside, it's time to open the first one and then start my process again. I rarely use the larger ones, but I have them if I need them, if the projects call for that. But the thing about these tanks is, as long as you take care of them, don't. Geez, I'm taking this for.
So how many? That's why we had to drive the pickup up here. Just the number of Opal blanks and the new 250 blanks that you brought down here.
Yeah.
For this week, we've got
over there. Yeah, there's over 500 blanks.
500 blanks, 500 opals,
tubes,
and stuff like
tubes.
that. Yeah.
But the thing about these pressure pots is, as long as you're using them the way they're meant to be used, right? Take care of them. Don't spill a bunch of resin over everything. If you get a leak inside, wipe it out, clean it. Resin's in there. Don't just say, it'll be fine, I'll scrape it out later, and then move on. Take care of it. Clean the seal if you need to. The biggest problem, the biggest area you're going to have is your seal not sealing, and that's a gasket.
I would tell you one of the things that I wish I would have done, but I've seen people do, is just take a piece of plywood or something that cuts a little base on the bottom and puts it in there to grab all your pour out, which I never did, which I regret not doing it.
I got one in every one of my tanks. But here's the thing. A lot of these tanks, you have to put something in the bottom of them because it's a pressure tank. If you've ever looked at those semis going down the road, anything that holds pressure has rounded ends. That's the same with these. See the top? It's rounded. The bottom, it comes down. It curves slowly. So it's not flat in there. So what you're going to need to do is figure out your inside diameter, maybe knock a 1/2 inch off of that. That way you've got a 1/4 of an inch or so of play. Drill a hole big enough for your finger right in the middle of it. You don't have to use but maybe 1/4 inch Luan or, an old piece of laminate flooring, something scrap, but just cut it out, drop it in there, but make sure there's a hole in it, because if you need to take it out, it's so much easier just reaching in and grab it by the fingers.
Can I make one suggestion? Is what I did on my 5 gallon ones was I went to Home Depot. I bought a Home Depot bucket for $3. I measured it up about 2 or 3 inches. I just cut the whole rest of the top off through the rest of the Home Depot bucket, the top off, just so I had a lip. And I put that in there, and I always use your casting racks. Your casting racks fit perfectly inside one of those things. And so there's just a Home Depot bucket inside of almost all my pressure pots.
The 5 gallon tanks are great for that.
Yep.
Even the 10s I've used.
Yes.
I've used pizza pans. Just go to the dollar store. You can pick them up for a couple bucks. It's.
And the only problem I've ever had with these things is when I'll pull them off, you just got to make sure that the little rubber gasket is sealed in there.
You got to make sure it's sitting flat.
Yep.
And if there's any imperfections on that gasket seal, wipe them off. If you get a chunk of resin in there, don't just think, it's fine, and clamp it down, because then you're going to dig into that silicone. So make sure they're good and clean. You can get replacement rings. I know people have actually run a bead of silicone in the lid itself where the gasket sits. I've never had to do that,
but yep.
But these tanks, you won't wear them out. The Harbor Freight tanks, what you have is basically a C-clamp that comes up on top of this rim. So it doesn't sit on this ear that's welded on. It actually threads down on the lid itself. And so if you over-tighten them, you'll start to cut into that and leave a hole in it. And so you're over-tightening them. And I'll use a Harbor Freight tank. I'll get about a year and a half out of it, and then I'll just throw it away and replace it.
Christopher actually had the standard lid from a big box store works. So he beat us. But Christopher, you may have beat me to the comment. I'm sorry I didn't check it.
So, Yeah,
And for those of you who are not, sorry, if it's okay, for those of you who are not watching the comments, Dean put out tonight's special: 4 stoppers, 4 inserts, four free wooden blanks, and the link to it's in the comments.
Other than that, I don't think doesn't look like there's any questions about pressure pots. The only thing I want to really hit strong is don't modify them from their original construction. Don't think you're going to add little plates up here to stop from digging in. Don't modify anything. Don't add it. Don't remove it. It's there for a reason. It's your safety. And the minute you start messing with the way these things are designed, you start taking away from the safety aspect that these have met in their production. So,
is it okay to make one quick point? But on the air compressor, every once in a while, make sure you unscrew it and let all the water out of it.
well, mine has a
Mine don't.
So here's the thing on air compressors.
Mine don't.
You can
Mine
buy.
doesn't.
You have several of them.
I-
They don't.
I
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the
yeah.
California Air compressor as well because it's very quiet. They make one that's a little quieter than most, and mine actually has a purge on it. So after it fills the tank, it will purge and push out any moisture in the bottom of the tank
wow.
through a drain hose, which is really nice. But you can also get
I got a
little moisture
Craftsman.
traps that screw onto the outside in between the hose and the
Yeah.
tank. So as you let air out, if there's moisture in it, it's going to get caught in that trap and not actually go into your tank. I've had people tell me, well, I think my problem is I'm putting moisture in my tank for my airlines. And I live in Illinois. It gets humid and it rains and it snows.
Yeah.
I've never had a problem with moisture from my compressor.
No, I just do it as just a natural point of service on it. I'll take
Yeah, and
and I'll just take
nothing
the water
worse
out.
than moving your compressor and shaking it and hearing the water
Yep.
slosh around in there. So yeah, you want to make sure you remove the nut and replace and
And what I wound
the
up doing,
water out.
just because of what you just said, is I've got a Craftsman compressor. As you know, it's in another room. It's in the room with my furnace. And then I run a hose into my casting room so I don't have to hear it.
Sure.
So I love the idea. If there's a quieter one, I wish I would have gotten that one.
So I have 2 of them, one for now and one for later. And
Nice.
that's always my joke, one for now, one for later. I actually bought one and I had a valve go bad after about 8 months on it. I bumped it and broke it. And so in the process of waiting for the new valve, I still needed one. So I just went and bought another one over the counter. So now I've got 2 of them. And they're quiet, but they're still not noise free, right? They're just,
All right.
there's so many decibels below what everything else is. So they advertise it as quieter.
I've got Alexa playing Van Halen at 10
Yeah,
all
you wouldn't
across
hear
my
it
room.
anyhow.
I can't hear it anyway.
So why don't you take this?
Yep. Yes, sir.
So here's what we would wind up with. If this were under pressure, which it wasn't, so we actually, there's going to be air holes in that, so we're not going to use that. But I did make another one prior to coming up here in a pressure pot. So what I would do then is come in here, pop my caps off, and I'll reuse them for the next pour. And I'm going to take this then to my table saw, and I'm going to cut these flat. So the big thing about this stuff is if you're going to turn a bottle stopper, one of the things you have to have is a flat surface. It can't just come out of the mold and be a little tapered, because when you put your threads in and you screw the stopper base onto it, there's going to be a gap. It's not going to mate up to it flat. So what I'll do is I'll grab the miter and I'll come up on the table saw and I'll just cut the end of it, and that way I know I've got a flat edge, and that's what I've done on this side. So
I if it's okay, I bandsaw mine and then I take it over to my sanding system.
Mhm.
I've got a big disc sander, and then I've got a little piece that I've got so that it'll go in straight and I don't worry about it.
the other option would be put this on your lathe in your chuck,
Yep.
and just part the very tip of it off, and now you've got a flat surface. And then you can even come in with a Jacob's chuck and in
Yep.
your
Perfect.
12.5 millimeter drill bit, and mark how deep you want to go with a marker on it, and then just crank the tailstock and drill into this. And then once you get your depth, you're going to take that B-cert, put a little bit of 2-part epoxy on the hole, pop it in there, and let it sit for a day.
I've got a drill bit with blue painter's tape
Mm-hmm.
that
So you
just
know
is
where
a
to stop.
flap
Yep.
that just always acts as my stop, and all I got to do is chuck in my drill bit for that.
I use my little Exotic Blanks center finder, and I'll lay it up here, and I'll draw a line, and I'll just keep rotating it and drawing a line and rotating it. So that way, when I'm done, I've got about 8 lines coming in, and where they all intersect, I know is dead center. And that way, if this gets flexed a little bit, it may not be a straight line. But if you come in from every angle with a straight line on something like that, and then just keep rotating it and draw another line, sooner or later, you're going to know where center is.
And where'd you get that center fender?
It's Exotic Blanks.
Yeah.
I actually got that at the Midwest Pen Turners Gathering. Dean was making
That's
them
what
and
I was
handing them out.
waiting for you to say. Yeah.
And I use it all the time, as you can see, because there's writing on the top of it. When I every now and then I skip off the top of it. But yeah, Dean made those, was giving them away, and it's awesome. So then what I'm going to do is epoxy my nut in the bottom there, my threads, and that's what I've got. And I let that set for a day, and now it's ready to be turned. And I'm going to basically mount it on my mandrel.
Can I make one quick small comment?
Yeah.
So for me, I don't know how important this is for you, but when I glue it in, I put the glue on the B-cert and not in the hole, because if I put too much in the hole, and I've learned this the hard way once, putting too much in the hole, and then when I'm pressing that in, it
Goes
acts
to the
as a
bottom.
plow,
Mhm.
and you can if you have too much glue in there, it'll plow back up into the threads.
So I do something a little different.
Perfect.
I probably threw it in here, didn't I?
So I wind up just putting mine on the B-cert, so if it does plow, it plows out.
What I like to do, I put my insert
Yep, that would work great.
on the mandrel, and then I put epoxy on it. I also put a little bit in the hole. I don't flood it, but I put a little bit in the hole, and then I push this over it. If I have to tap it in a little bit, I will tap it. But basically, I let this drops in flush, and it just sits there. And then after about an hour, I'll come in and just remove this. And that way I know my threaded insert is
It's clean.
flat.
Yep.
And I know it meets up flush here. Everything is nice and straight, and it's not going to go anywhere. It's because in the past I've done it where they didn't meet up very well. And the problem is you've only got so much room. So if I put it in crooked and then I took it to the belt sander and I bumped it and tried to sand it down, now I'm sanding away from the brass. Now I don't have the depth I need to screw my stopper in all the way. So then I'd have to take my stopper and grind the end off, and I really don't want to do that. So it's just much easier to know that you're getting that in flat by putting it on here and then pushing it in. And the important thing is don't use too much epoxy, and then you won't have it going everywhere. And another thing, I don't know if you guys do, but if I have a little bit of a gap after the epoxy cures, I take a little bit of medium glue boost, and I just lightly fill that gap to where it flows in. I spray it off, and now it's flush. So, and not that it's needed, but I just feel better up here knowing that the gap is full, right? It's not going to go anywhere because that epoxy is strong stuff. So that's basically what we have. And now, Dean, if you want to go to the lathe, so basically, this is going to thread on your headstock. As you can see, it's not perfectly straight. There's a little bit of a wobble. But what I've got is I've got basically a live center in the tail of it here, and I'm just going to come up so far.
Are you going to use carbide on this one, or?
Well,
Because
I'm going to have to because it's flat.
Yeah.
I've got both. So
I love that tool rust for that.
yeah, it's a little low. I want to bump it up a hair. So I want to come in here maybe just above center. We'll see how that does. It might be a little high. So obviously we're going to make a little bit of noise until we get everything down, but until I get it round, it's going to jump a little bit.
Well, and it's got that plastic in it, too.
Yep, so we're cutting that mold off. All I really want to do is expose the pasta so you can see it. We'll get it round and then...
While you're talking about pasta, Giada was just about a block away from me, opening up a new casino that opened up a mile away from me. So I would have had the chance to go and meet Giada. There you go.
Okay, thank you. We don't have to finish it. I just want to show them so I know our time's probably getting a little close. But for those of you that haven't seen what pasta noodles look like, tastes good too. Clean that up a hair. So as you cut into this, basically you're just going to start exposing some of this pasta. And now the fun part would be add whatever shape you want to it. I think it'd be really cool if a guy were to come in here and put have a spiral pasta blank. But it just kind of gives you an idea of the potential that you can do. And as you see, all the different colors are going to start to pop through. And once you turn that plastic mold cover off and you get it round, that's when you start to have a little fun.
Well, and that's the key. I mean, if you look at this and that there are no real bubbles in this or anything, it just looks perfect.
Yeah. Now we definitely don't have any bubbles. The fun thing about bottle stoppers too is, like I say, you can do whatever you want with them. You don't have to have any set perfect shape. You can add little swoops where you want and then come out here and
John, are you going to talk about finishing this at the end? Because someone asked about sealing it with CA. I think you'll talk a little bit about finishing, right?
Yep. So the thing about, especially with a pasta blank,
You can what? Yeah, it's kind of hard to hear that.
okay. So just kind of give you an idea as you start to cut into this. What I would do then, I would probably bring this up so far. I would part this off here at the top and then just kind of round it over just to kind of give it a little bit of a shape, more of a point and a roundness. But then what I would do is I would sand this all down nice and smooth. And then I would, if there were any spots that chipped out on me, I'd probably take a little bit of Glue Boost medium CA and fill it. The fact that I was cutting with carbide left it really nice and clean. So I would probably just take this and spray about 4 coats of
Lacquer shot.
lacquer shot. Yeah. And put the lacquer on there and then give it a few days and then buff it. So Dean, if you want to come back to the front. So as you can see, resin, I always say resin's really messy to cast, but it's also really messy to turn. This stuff, it just hangs, right? It's kind of static cling. It gets around, it floats up in the air, and then it sticks to you. And it's not like wood. If you're used to turning wood, the first time you turn any type of resin blank,
You got some of them in that, bro.
you're not gonna be happy with it. So I've grown accustomed to it because I've turned more resin than I have wood, and it's just I'm used to the mess. I'm used to coming out looking like a resin abominable snowman. So
Then you can walk out of my house, go to the neighbor, and have people think you're a bum.
but the nice thing is also you can put a nice vacuum hose off the back of it, turn that on, pull a vacuum. It will help pull a lot of that stuff away from me so that it's not floating around. The biggest chore is a lot of times it'll get wrapped up on your piece, and you'll have to stop or take a stiff bristle brush and rub over it real quick, and that'll help get the shavings away. But
That's actually one of the coolest things, is especially if you're cutting so clean and then it wraps all the way around. You get frustrated, but you knew that you cut one big long ribbon.
what's really cool is if you can get it to start to go in the vacuum.
Yes.
So then as you're cutting it, you're just feeding the vacuum.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's not uncommon then when I empty them because I've got a Cyclone. So it's pulling everything through the cyclone so that it doesn't get in the bag of the vacuum. And when I dump that out, it's just Easter time, right? It's just a big Easter basket of color. So yeah, it's
John,
fun.
I have to say, the question you should have expected to come has just come up. Hey, are you selling those pasta blanks, John?
So I will say this: I bought 8 boxes of pasta. So this coming month, the next 3 weeks, I've got to get some color casts and some embedded objects done. So yeah, I'll probably have some pasta blanks as well. Just something fun to play with.
Next month.
Yes, next month. Next month. So yeah, but I mean, bottle stoppers, right? They're fun. It's a lot. It's just a good time. It's experimenting, and you're not out a lot because you didn't use a lot of material. And if it didn't turn out, it really isn't a big deal.
But I don't want to dwell on it, but it was almost every single technique that you did, even your casting techniques are pretty close to the casting techniques that you do when you're doing a pen blank.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
you're using a little bit different form.
Just a little bit larger mold or something, but the handling of the resin is always the same. It doesn't matter what you're casting. You're going to mix it the same way. You're going to pour it the same way. You're going to put it in the pressure pot.
It's going to come to the same temperatures.
It's all
everything.
the same. It may get there quicker and larger volume. You may have a harder time mixing it. I've had people tell me, well, I don't use the drill bit to mix because I feel like it adds too much air and I can't get the air out of my resin. Well, I've used a cake beater, and before I decided to alter that inch and a half, or I think it's an inch and a quarter or an inch spade bit. Before I did that, I bought some cake beaters. Did I take them from my wife when she was at work? But regardless, you talk about meringue. I mean, that resin was frothy foamy, and I put it in the pressure pot, pressured it up, and my blanks came out just like they would anything else.
I actually, this is weird to say, but one of the things that you and I have talked about numerous times, especially with respect to that, is the only difference is now that you're doing something bigger, if you're not mixed completely thoroughly all the way through, things will sink to the top or on the bottom. When you do that on a pen blank, you may not notice it nearly as much. You'll turn it off or whatever. But on these, you'll see distinct where you know, when people come up and go, what did I do wrong? 9 times out of 10, you'd say you didn't mix it thoroughly enough, because you can see the wisps in there that you talked about. You can see where the color is not consistent at the bottom as it is on the top.
Sure.
It gets a little vignette in it and things like that. So mixing it with the drill and the spade bit is clearly superior to any of the other ways that you need to do it.
So another thing, if you're going to mix a lot of resin, what I recommend is have another container next to you. Once you put A and B together and you mix all this up, whether it be a half-gallon container or a bucket, ice cream bucket, whatever, mix it up all real well. Once you're mixed, I like to pour half of it in another container. Now I've only got half of the amount, and I go back in and mix that again. And that way I'm getting the bottom. Scrape the edges of those containers. That's where the heavier resins, the sides, the B's will hang up on there. And if you go in there, just kind of scrape the edges of it, you'll start to see it getting mixed. I'll turn the container as I'm mixing it. I'm alternating the way the drill bit's going.
Well, and as a follow-up, you've got a lot of these on your YouTube channel that you really should be checking out.
Right. Well, and I've been doing some YouTube channels for a while now. I've got 30-something videos, and I plan on doing a lot more. And I want to address these specific issues because I have a lot of people ask me what went wrong. If you can identify what went wrong, you can fix it. So that's the biggest chore. So for me, I'm going to be I'm in the works now of putting some videos out that are basically going to talk about how to recognize what went wrong and what to do for it. So, but everything I did tonight is pretty much how I do it all the time, and I have pretty good success with it. So, I don't know, anything.
So we're coming up on 8 o'clock. Before we start heading into the final set of questions and stuff, I think let's do our new unique giveaway. Mark or John, somebody had it at a time. Can somebody grab that layered pour that was sitting around?
The what?
That. Oh, there you go. One of those. Let me zoom in on one of those.
Put it closer
You
to
need
that
it over
camera.
here?
There you go. You got your choice.
Because my mic isn't on there. My mic isn't on that one. We're going to try that again because my mic wasn't available when we zoomed in. For some reason, that zoomed in camera doesn't have me on it. We're going to have fun. I'm going to try this all over again. Thanks, guys, for letting me know there was no sound. So there's 12 of these available. 12 of these random pours available. They're not John's, so somebody else made these. They are not under pressure. So there might be micro bubbles you will have to fill in with a little bit of CA in some cases. They'll make great bottle stoppers, very cool colors. What we're going to do is they'll be live on the website shortly. I'll put the code on the screen. All you have to do is check out, put the code into your coupon code on the screen, and they'll go from being $15 to being free. Everybody please only order one. The coupon's only good for one. And then if you have ordered previously tonight, or if you order after you've checked this guy out, Dawn she always combines shipping. If you have multiple orders in the same day, she combines shipping, refunds the shipping. So that'll be the same case for this. If you get multiple products, it'll combine. The coupon code is YT bottle, YouTube bottle. I will put that on the screen. So there's the coupon code. And the product will be on the home page. And it's also available. I'll paste the link as well. Here's the link as well. So again, the first 12 people to check one of these out and put their coupon code in will get it for $15 minus $15. So the item itself will be free.
And Dean,
right.
do you mind going? You want to go back over what the bottle stopper, B-cert, and other offer is tonight?
Real quick,
Sure.
Dean, I did see someone had asked a question about the Life Center support on the tailstock there. Yeah, regardless of what I'm turning, I'll use it as long as I need to. And then once I get to the shape and everything turned down, I'll remove the tailstock support and then do the final turning on the tips.
Can I make another suggestion on that one? Is that I love to use the turn between center system. And especially when you're using, so I use the turn between center system, the
manual.
yeah. And then what I'll do is the little Delrin bushings that we use for doing finishing, I'll put them on one forward, one backward onto it, and then just use that as a press into it. And then that way I can cut right into it and always leave that little Delrin bushing as holding it on, and kind of almost like it's not a jam chuck because it's on
It's just support.
the other side.
Yeah.
And I'm just giving it a little bit of support. And it's just another way of using something that I already had sitting around the house.
And I'll do that a lot of times as well. And what I notice is the tip of it, because it's about a 7 millimeter post, it will start to cut a small hole in it, just enough to kind of hold it all there. It doesn't go very deep, but it's enough that it can't wiggle off of that.
Yeah.
So, yep.
And so those two little Delrin bushings help me a lot
Yeah.
to get that right where I want it. So Dean, anything else that you guys want to talk? You talked about the other offer, right?
I
think you started
Say
it.
one more time. Yeah, I did. So the other offers right next to it on the homepage as well. It's a bottle stopper YouTube 4-pack. It's $28.75. Gets you 4 bottle stoppers, 4 B-certs, and 4 domestic wood bottle stopper blanks. And again, it'd be very easy to just add that to your cart if you're also trying to do one of the giveaway items. Looks like we've got.
And I think it's fair to say, Ed, right, that you guys might be doing more with bottle stoppers coming up in the future with some of the wood ones, right?
We're working on a lot of different things, and that's part of it. Yeah, lots of things other than pens. With the Daycom going out of business, we're going to be expanding in other different directions, as well as continuing to enhance our pen offerings. So this does not mean we're getting out of pens, but it does mean that there will be other things available because it's there's space on the website now. All the stuff is going to be eliminated.
I enjoy looking at all the bull blanks that you have when we walk through, and You know,
that we have to walk around.
it's bad enough.
Oh my God.
All the rest of the eye candy, but then to look down and see some of these bowl blanks.
Yeah.
Well, the worst
yeah.
part is, and I know Dawn does this to me on purpose, is that I have to walk through the room that has an entire wall of those burls sitting out there. Oh my God, those
Yep.
are some of the most beautiful burls, and they're huge, huge pieces of burl.
Yeah.
Hey, so as we said earlier and now too is in the comments, please let us know. So as I pointed out earlier, we did diverge a little from doing pens the last couple months. What did we talk about last month? We talked a little bit about
Was it Peppermills?
pepper mills and some of the stuff there. And now this month we're doing this. We'll get back to pens. We love doing pens, but hopefully what we're trying to do is just show you some of the other techniques. And we're doing this all based on comments and stuff that you guys are driving. So please, please, please let us know what you'd like to see us work on. And as we always say, even if it's something that we don't know, we definitely know people who can help us figure that out.
Question is, I asked a ways back, these are not stainless chrome, I've heard peels, so I use stainless bottle opener. Can you speak to this? Any truth in the peeling concern?
The best I can say is I've never run into it.
I haven't, but I prefer stainless. That
I-
way I know
yeah.
there's no issues.
Yeah.
I have
I-
run into it
Yeah.
years and years and years ago. I think that the newer equipment, you're absolutely right. The fact that neither one of you has run into it in 20 years, and probably when I did was more than 20 years ago. So I don't think this day and age you're going to have a problem with chrome peeling. But yes, stainless is definitely
It
more
fits,
durable.
it fits my model with everything that I do, right? So even when we do pens and stuff like that,
Yes.
I hate to say this way. I rarely buy. It drives me nuts when I see on Facebook who's selling the cheapest.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah.
Right.
You get what you pay for in a lot of this stuff. So I'll pay a couple bucks more for everything that I do because I want to be able to hand something to someone that I'm really, really proud of.
But they've had to have come a long way in the industry because look at the pen parts we're using now that are chrome because we can't get
Yeah.
rhodium and palladium and all this other stuff now. Chrome has become one of my favorite
Oh, it does.
finishes on a pen. And what gets to put to use more than anything than a pen, you know, in our industry of things that we make. I've never had an issue with a chrome pen flaking.
Well, I sold a lot in Milwaukee before we started going to Chicago shows. And in Milwaukee, I always use the phrase, chrome, if it were not durable, would not be on your Harley Davidson.
Absolutely.
And so, it worked out pretty well. People
Registered trademark.
bought the concept of very good quality chrome. But yes, if chrome is plated poorly, it's like anything else. It can peel.
Yeah.
So the thing is that I think a lot of the vendors or the manufacturers who used to be around on the exceptionally cheap side
Okay.
have pretty much found their way into the gutter and they're not around anymore.
So
Well-
TVC says, yeah, exactly what we're saying.
Yep, and Piney says it's the acid in the wine that does it, and that makes
Yep.
sense.
Yeah.
Wine is very acidic, so I prefer the stainless on a stopper.
Mhm.
I like the looks of it. You know, it's just a couple more bucks, but it's well worth it. I
Mm-hmm.
just like the
Well,
looks.
stainless is becoming more available also. The manufacturers that we're dealing with are now offering it as kind of an option. It's not very universal yet. We're working right now on a project that's going to require some stainless. And in order to do that, we're looking at minimums that are substantial. So,
Well,
can it be done? Yes, it can be done. Do we expect that it will be? Yes, I expect that it will be. But you're going to find that only the vendors who are around for a while and fairly solid are likely to be able to afford it.
I'm personally I'm going to be buying those silicone, half-inch silicone plugs that you guys have now on the website, and I'm going to start making over the bottle ones because what I like about that is the option to engrave on top.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I recently engraved some, and they had they were a darker wood on the outside, but they had a light wood inlay on the very top of it, rounded off, and it gave me the perfect background for an engraving for a logo.
See, and I like the ability then for me to be able to send it to you and Dean to have them engraved.
Let me see if I've got.
Because I'm not paying. I can't get into one more toy. I've got so many toys sitting around my basement.
So maybe we can hold this in front of the camera up here if it'll focus in. But just the options to be able to engrave on them over the bottle wood stoppers, and that's just the silicone plugs on the inside. So it's just
Wow.
you know.
Good job, Dean.
So of course I didn't turn those. Dick turned those, and I just did the engraving. But I'm still not as good as Dean. But you know,
That is wood that you're engraving in there.
that's all wood. Yeah,
Very nice.
Yeah,
Very
it was-
clean.
it was all wood. So.
Yeah, Dick and John
So-
gave me a nice gavel and
Yeah, block and gavel.
block and gavel for when I retired as the president of the local club, and it was gorgeous.
So for those that are in the chat, there's quite a few that are saying, "Hey, I'll only use stainless." I'll give you a little tip. I know Dawn has some more stainless bottle stoppers coming in the near future, so I would tell you to watch the next couple Sunday ads. One of these Sundays, I'll be willing to bet she'll be putting out a thing saying, "Hey, we've got some more stainless bottle stoppers in as well."
Yeah,
Who
they're
knows? Maybe
ordered.
she'll do some sort of a wood stainless combo there too.
They're all ordered, and there should be in the next couple of weeks.
So I still haven't seen anybody make any suggestions for topics. I need more topics to talk about for the next couple months. Even if it's just have John get up and chat for 2 hours. Makes my life easy.
Yeah.
Makes Ed's life easy.
Yeah. We'll
So
always come up with something.
we're kind of coming up on the close for tonight, though.
Yeah.
Any other final
will tell you-
questions? Sorry, Dean.
There's four more of the freebies left. We're down to 4. So, 3. It just updated.
Anybody else have any questions, comments?
You guys know how to make rings.
I've done rings. I've got a YouTube video on it, but that's a good one.
I know that one was asked once before, I think, through email. At one point I saw, and I think we forgot about it. That's probably not a bad idea. It's been a while since we've done ring stuff.
Well, rings are particularly a good idea right now. Thank you for bringing it up, because I have a huge box of rings that I just bought that have been delivered, and it came in like 2 days ago. So we will have ring cores now back in stock for all the sizes as soon as we get some time to put it up, which will probably be over the weekend. Generally, stuff goes up over the weekend.
And
So-
you did say that you have some nice new wooden ring blanks. So that
Yes,
you might
we
have.
do. We have a lot of nice new wooden ring lights that we just need to, again, things that we need to list. And we will. We'll get to it.
Segmenting is a good one. We've got a couple options on that one. I'd love to be able to see if Mark would do something, or Al Miyake did some beautiful segmenting at the last MPG.
I tell you, segmenting is an art all on its own.
Uh-huh.
And
Right.
there's no one. I couldn't imagine how many classes a guy would need to really learn all of it, because a lot of that is just vision. Once you get your basics down on how to glue it, but it's one thing to look at it in a square form, but visualize it as it's turned, and that's when it starts to come to life.
Well, the hardest thing for that is, because I've tried to do it, is proportions.
Yeah.
Something
Keeping
that
things
yeah,
centered and
You- you actually make things generally too thick, because to see it when it's flat, you see it thick that way.
Mark talks for 2 hours. No, we don't want to encourage.
No,
that.
we don't want to see that. Right. Oh, look, and look who mentioned
That's
it.
Yeah.
It's only 10 minutes in mark time, though.
Guys, I don't need to be here.
Maybe Nate could come up and do something.
Yeah, what about Nate coming up
Yeah.
and doing something?
Absolutely.
Segmenting, what other one did we have?
Rings.
Oh, Anthony asked about SWAT,
Yeah.
if anybody's going out to SWAT.
I was hoping to go to it, and unfortunately, I had prior engagements, so I had to turn it down.
Using leftovers. That's an interesting thought.
Yep.
So the other one that we talked about too is the pen blank challenge,
Yes.
where we each take pen blanks and do whatever we want with them.
Yeah.
I think that would be kind of fun.
Nate's up for it.
We're not driving you up here, Nate. You're coming on your own, superstar.
I'll pick him up, and well,
Superstar. Anybody who mocks me like that, I'm gonna.
well, now if I picked him up, him and I could talk about you all the way up here.
Yeah.
And then you could just meet us here. Yep. Good to hear from you, Larry. Sorry we didn't make it up.
Oh yeah, someone sold. So when I went to go, I was gonna go pick up that lathe. What was it?
The shopsmith.
The shopsmith. He sold it.
Yeah.
It was. I had a cousin who was gonna give me a shopsmith.
It only
just
took
go
you
up there to
2
pick it.
years to plan.
And
to
by
pick
the time
it
I
up.
figured out when I could get up and pick it, he went. I sold it like 3 months ago. I gave it away. He gave it away.
Yeah. Yep. Well, that opens some possibilities, and yeah, I'm always up for a guest appearance too. So
Oh,
figure out what if Nate wants to come up and shine and do something, and then we could sit and heckle him.
yeah. And the other thing too is if you guys wouldn't mind, and I know Ed doesn't mind, if you guys got topics for the MPG, so I'm gonna let everybody in on a secret now. I think we talked about it last month. We have now signed a contract for next year's MPG. The hotel, the space we have is twice as much space as we had in the past, and we are going to be offering hands-on experience. So things like John doing some casting, you'll be able to come in and do some hands-on casting with John.
Huh?
We've got some topics we're looking at, and there's going to be more hands-on stuff that we're going to be doing. I think it's going to be a blast.
It is not the same hotel.
No, it's
Yeah, different one. Looks like I'm buying some more resin, huh?
Oh, you know what? And is it okay, Ed, to talk about this? If you guys are in the Nashville area, what's the date on that one? August 7th, 8th, and 9th?
I believe so.
I think it's August 7th, 8th, and 9th in the Nashville area. Even if you're not in the Nashville area, you might want to consider this. John and I will be down in Nashville at Powermatics headquarters, and I think there's still a couple openings left for our class. It's going to be 2.5 days. Turns out that the first day you're going to be doing casting. The second day you're going to actually be turning a lot of the stuff that you cast the first day. And then on Sunday, rather than take off and go home, we just decided we would come in the morning and sit there for 3 hours at the Powermatic headquarters and basically sit there. And if you want to bring in a project or something we didn't get done the day before, you could come in and you can work with the fine folks at Powermatic. The beautiful part about it is you're going to be running on Jet Powermatic lathes out there. And even if you want to try some of the EasyWood tools, EasyWood is giving me a bunch of tools to bring out there to work with it. So it's August, I think it's 7th, 8th, and 9th. It's a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you go on the Powermatic website, you can check it out or send an email to sales@exoticblanks, and we can help you figure out how to get you signed up for that class. I think it's $500 for the for all 3 days or 2.5 days that you're there. Is anybody signed up for it? I know that I think there's 22 spots available, and last I checked, I think we had a bunch of them were taken. I know that at the AAW alone we signed up 4 or 5 people right there.
Well, I just had a pallet of resin delivered to the house. So I bought just under $3,000 worth of resin. So I plan on bringing a large portion of it, and I don't want to take it home. So hopefully there'll be people there that will help us use this resin up.
Mike, we won't start opening up the MPG till October. But the beauty of it is, if you tune into this channel, I'm pretty sure you're going to hear me talk about it again.
No.
So, Mark, it's the new location, but same dates, correct?
I will check the date. It's
Pymie, don't get yourself in trouble.
give me 1 second.
You can always hang out with us, you know, happy wife, happy life. So
I believe it's April 16th and 17th.
So that same basic weekend. Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bill, I spill enough for both of us, so don't worry about that.
Have we sold out of these things? Or freebied out of them?
2 left still. So there's 2 people that'll watch this and catch up and be able to grab them, but almost. All right, are we ready to wrap her up?
Sounds like
Oh,
a good
look.
plan.
Yeah, Penny's going to. Did you see that? He's going to come out that. He'll come out to Nashville to go hunting with you.
Oh, shoot.
Yep, think that's a fine idea, Dean. I can't get in the picture because if I do, I'll
Come
start
on in.
coughing.
Yeah, come on in.
I'll get
Start
that in.
coughing.
Yeah,
Just cough on Mark.
Yeah, thanks.
that's it. Cough, cough. Okay, yeah.
I believe this is the first time I've ever sat center, so this is nice.
That's the way it is.
Yeah.
Center of attention.
Well, normally you're over there.
Nobody wants to see me.
So yes, why don't we say good night and thank everybody for coming. It's been
Nice,
a great
Dave.
time.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Well, you did say nobody wanted to see you.
Oh, that's good. Nice.
So have a good night, everyone.
Oh, sorry, Anthony. They'll be during the event. During the event is the thought of when we're going to do the classes. So we'll let everybody know before it comes out. But we're still looking for topics and people that will be doing some demonstrations for us.
All right, I will
All right.
close it down now. Now that I've completely broken everybody's train.
Thanks all for coming.